Hey everybody, welcome to the Hang Up. It's Wednesday night here. I'm at Dillahunty. Man, I read a cool article today. And I say cool because I'd like for religions to go away unless they can demonstrate that they're true. I mean, I'd like for all things that haven't met their burden of proof to demonstrate that they're true to kind of be sidelined and not as popular as they are. I'd prefer for the truth to win out, and for us to be able to just acknowledge when we don't know an answer that it's better for us not to commit to an answer. And so this article was about how the United States is currently set to probably lose about 100,000 churches in the next few years. And the reasons for that, it's a lot of speculation, but church attendance is massively down across almost all denominations, across various religions. And the interest has changed and dropped. And this article interviewed a number of preachers. And of course, it was fun listening to them or reading them speak about things in terms of how they thought, hey, I'm not quite sure what God's plan is. Hey, I'm not quite sure what God's going to do. There's definitely, we've lost some interest here. People seem to be seeking different things. And, I think some pastors in different positions are failing a little bit, but we know that God's got a plan. And I think God maybe just is changing the nature of the church. I don't know. It seems like they're guessing at what God's doing. And I would think that if God is changing the church, it'd be really easy for him to at least communicate with the religious leaders. I mean, if he's not going to talk to the rest of us, not going to provide any guidance or information or evidence to the rest of us, he should at least be able to talk to the leaders to say, oh, here's what we're doing. Yeah, it's going to be a little difficult, but I wanted you to know we're going to start changing the way church works. I think this is an admission of failure, like many others. I think that the best arguments I've said before against the existence of a God, by and large, not that there need to be any arguments against the existence of a God, because the burden of proof is on the people who are claiming they're there, and until they meet it, there's no good reason to believe it. But there are good arguments against the existence of various gods, depending on what's claimed. My top two have always been arguments from divine hiddenness, that we don't see or detect a God, and the people who are claiming to have detected God don't seem to be able to demonstrate that. And a similar argument is the arguments from inconsistent revelation, the vast number of denominations, the fact that people disagree on stuff. I've mentioned many times before, one of my all-time favorite debates was between two Christians on, what the actual plan of salvation is. And so here's two people who both believe they have a connection with God and a good understanding of the Bible, and they're debating about what the path to salvation is. What is God's plan for this? And instead of pointing out where the other one was wrong, they both just presented the verses that they would interpret to support their position, and didn't say, "Oh, you interpreted that one wrong," or you forgot this, or you skipped this. It was not even. It was a wild debate. I think the argument from sagging church attendance is probably in that same realm, because it's clear that people aren't as interested, even though there is some evidence that religiosity is on the rise amongst some younger people. But people aren't getting what they want at church. And so God is essentially failing. Prayer is failing. And the communities are failing, and the defenders of the faith are failing. The evangelists, the apologists, maybe they're just too old school. Maybe when we moved away from fire and brimstone to, more touchy-feely, love thy neighbor, let's build a community, maybe that lost some people. Maybe the hardcore, the Westboro Baptist Church, or the strict fundy evangelicals, maybe they've got the better one. Maybe we need to get back to fire and brimstone, because that's what actually inspires people. Is that what people are looking for in a church? I'd argue that most of what people are looking for in a church, and have largely always been looking for in a church, and by the way, I'm talking primarily from my experience with Christian churches, is a social community and network. Islam and other religions, with regard to their ability to guide lives, and whether or not they have established any good reason to think they're true, I recognize that they are building communities, and some of those communities frequently do good things. Did Imagine say church is good? No, no. People are good. And the nice thing about churches is they get people together. And the type of church that you're in, if you're the type of person who wants to do good, you're probably attending a church that wants to do good. You're probably attending the kind of church that is feeding the homeless. You're probably attending the kind of church that is involved in community stuff. You may be attending a church like the one James Tellerico goes to, or leads, or wants to lead. On shows like this, and I've been doing this a while on a number of different shows, calls have dropped off a little bit from sincere believers defending their views. I genuinely hope that tonight we get quite a few. But the interest in religion or religious debate and discussion or presenting a defense has waned. And I also view that as a give up. I have a number of friends, or let's call them acquaintances now, since some of them, after claiming we were friends, have decided to stop talking to me, which is fine. But they've given up on reaching out to me or anybody remotely like me. They don't want to debate skeptics. They don't want to debate former theists. They don't want to debate Bible scholars and Quran scholars who aren't actually Christians and Muslims. They don't want to debate people who are knowledgeable about their holy books or about sound epistemology. Instead, they're going after either the dumbed down Gen Z and laters, or the ex whatever religion I'm not. So Muslims are going after ex-Christians and finding the things that they desire. I had someone who was an atheist, an ex-Christian, who was running a podcast, who I interacted with, and then all of a sudden he was looking to debate me because he had become a Muslim, and now he's in prison for sexually assaulting young girls. Or maybe he's no longer in prison. I don't know how long they bothered to keep them. I had another acquaintance who was an ex-Muslim. He hung out. He helped me with debates with Muslims. He was on other atheist shows, and now he's a Christian. Doesn't offer any evidence-based arguments for his views. Just, this is the one that had a stint as a public atheist supposed intellectual, and then spent the rest of her time in right-wing think tanks until, as a strategic choice, it seems, decided that Christianity has a better shot against Islam. And so she's going to be participating with Christianity and identify as a Christian. It's because her goal wasn't the truth. Her goal wasn't providing a good defense or reasoned justification for the truth. She was pissed at Islam. And since atheism isn't as likely to take it down as Christianity, in her view, she's going with the strategic choice. That's what it seems to me based on everything she wrote after getting there. I genuinely hope we see a lot of exceptions to that tonight. Whether Christian, Muslim, Scientologist, if you've got some esoteric view on religion, by all means, you can call 720-619. Wow. I can't even see the thing. I lost the number that I had memorized because it's not up on the screen. The producer will get it up on the screen a little bit. But there's also a link down below where you can call in. I do have a couple more things to get to really quickly, though, because most of our Sunday shows focus on religion. This show, I also focus a little on politics. I'm happy to do that when calls come in. I'm genuinely not feeling it that much tonight because I think MAGA is pretty much defeated. They're having a little civil war amongst themselves, and as you know, a lefty, possible commie, democratic socialist, whatever. I'll just report that the war in Iran is continuing, whether they call it a war or not. The job numbers are incredibly soft. Gas prices are up. So all the things that they said they were voting for Trump for, the opposite has happened. And the administration tried to lie about whether or not they had used old intel to target a school full of girls with a tomahawk. The Epstein files are being scrubbed and deleted during this massive distraction. And it is just a parade of incompetence as they replace Kristi Noem with Mark Wayne, Jim Bob McMullenster. And they work actively to try to steal elections or end elections, and marginalize voting rights with their SAVE Act, to the point where John Cornyn here in Texas is willing to change the rules on the filibuster in order to push through this SAVE Act. And Trump's trying to get them to do it too. Some stuff you need to know about the SAVE Act. There's the SAVE Act, then there's the Save America Act, which is worse, and then there's the MEGA Act, which is worse. But the Save America or the SAVE Act is bad enough. Solutions are not ready for prime time and will make things worse and will deny eligible voters the right to vote. One is that citizenship is already required, and we already verify really well and investigate people's eligibility to vote. There are also better ways to verify citizenship than putting the burden on individual citizens. Part of which is that 9% of eligible voters don't have easy access to the needed documentation. 52% of eligible voters don't have an unexpired passport with their current name on it. 11% don't have access to their birth certificate. When you put the burden on them, but don't provide them the resources to be able to get that in a timely fashion, you're basically saying this section of people don't get to vote. And if you don't think they've done the analysis on whose votes this is most likely to marginalize, you're just not paying attention. Things need to change at the government level with regard to documentation before you can start really requiring it, before it's viable to even attempt something like this. This also unnecessarily complicates things and would deny voting access to a number of folks unnecessarily when there is no evidence of any significant problem. For example, Utah did an investigation with over 2 million voters, and out of 2 million voters, they found one voter that was a non-citizen registration, but did not vote. It was detected, and they did not vote, and 0 instances of non-citizens voting. 96.3% of verification cases in August of 2025 were verified citizens. 96.3. 3.12% of those verification cases were folks who were simply unable to locate their records. 0.53% were deceased. And 0.04% were non-citizens. In my county here, Travis County, Texas, well, it's not my county now, but my former county, 25% of the voters that USCIS flagged as potentially non-citizens had already provided proof of citizenship when they registered, which means the system used to identify risk is vastly more flawed than the risk. The impact on eligible voters is going to be vastly greater than any problem this is attempting to solve, and that's the point. This is an attempt at voter suppression. This is like trying to stop a dripping faucet in your house by shutting off water to your entire neighborhood. Tonight's guest, Allegedly Ian, is joining me. You guys have seen him here on the line before. We're hoping to get some sincere callers calling in to defend their religious views and more. Ian, how you doing?
Doing great. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. When I was talking about this study, or the various studies that are talking about church attendance down, and when you hear about we might lose 100,000 churches and church attendance is on the decline, what do you think is happening?
Well, there's a crisis of meaning among young people, especially where we've been shown all these images about what a good, happy life is supposed to look like. And people are told, the apologists, the evangelicals tell us that you just have to go to church, you have to go to the mosque, this is where you find meaning, this is where you find community. And people are showing up to those places and they're not finding it. Instead, what they're finding is gaslighting, they're finding lies.
Yeah. I remember, well, when I was a kid, which was a long time ago, my dad moved every 4 or 5 years because he worked for the airlines. And so there was not a lot of job security. And that would cause us to get a new house and look for a new church. And then we would go to the try out several churches as a family. And we ended up at whichever one my mom thought the preacher was right with God. So mom became kind of the litmus test for determining which preachers were right with God. But I remember being raised with this idea that yes, your friends are going to be at church. You're going to make friends with people at church. You're going to go there. You're going to socialize. But that's not the purpose of church. And it seems today, when I go and attend church, which has been a little while, but I have gone in recent years, and when I talk to people who go to church, they're I rarely hear them talk about how they're going to praise, to get right with God, to learn to be better, evangelists. It seems to be like, here's the church social, here's the dinner, here's my friends, here's where we get to sing and have a Sunday and pretend like we did something. I don't see anything about working towards Christ's goals. Just these are my people and I'm going to hang with them.
Yeah, I mean, the promise of community is the door-to-door salesman pitch. You're promised a certain set of things if you come to church. You're gonna become a good moral person. You're gonna find the community, the family that you've always needed. You're gonna find true, genuine fulfillment. And then when it's time to actually evaluate the beliefs, actually listen and learn to the things that are being said, it's like when the door-to-door salesman is asking you to buy the product. It's really just not what they're looking for. The sales pitch is nice.
By the way, lines are open right now. We got a caller we're going to start taking here in just a minute. I'm going to go through a couple things related tonight. 720-619-2288, which I remembered just right as I looked down to see it, is the number to call in. When you're on the call screener, let them know what you're calling about. Theists or people who fundamentally disagree with myself or Ian or both of us are going to go to the top of the queue, and we look forward to people who are willing to have a good conversation. Please remember, there is a delay. There's a delay between me and Ian. There's a delay between each of us in the studio. There's a delay between you and us. That does make things complicated, but a lot of you will be happy that Ian's going to be taking the front seat. Rawr. So you've got to get through Ian before you can come for the. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but we're going to try and have some genuinely good conversations. I know we're doing vertical videos, so hooray to Jimmy and Arden for getting that set up and all the new callers that are coming in. If you have a view where you don't want to necessarily defend the truth of your religion, but you want to give your thoughts on why you, as a believer, value church or don't value church, why you, as a believer, have stopped attending a church. I'm interested in those as well, provided they're a little short. I mean, obviously, if we're not going to have a back and forth, it's our soapbox, I suppose, if it's anybody's and not the callers. But we love getting the callers to call in on that. So we have one caller already lined up. You guys can start filling up the queue with others. But let's get started here. I got other announcements to make. Hey, Arden.
Yes.
Do you have schedule updates and stuff? I love doing this because then I don't have to do any work, and she gets annoyed and
yeah, you should get it figured out because I'm pretty busy right now. If you can find it, you have the link. It's pinned in the line. Discord.
I got it. We'll get back to it. I'll do announcements after this. Let's not make these callers wait any longer. Theists are going to go to the top of the queue, and the first caller is well, I would say not a theist, but maybe close. But Tim's a deist from New York, pronouns are he, him, and he wants to know, why would secular humanism win out in an atheist world? Hey, Tim, how are you?
How are you, Matt? I'm okay.
I'm okay too.
Maybe feeling kind of like you. Not great about the whole situation. But I just wanted to know, why do you think, if atheism wins in the field of ideas, why would people come to secular humanism instead of some form of hedonism or selfishness, given that even great minds who were atheists, such as Friedrich Nietzsche or just people that were popular thinkers like Anton LaVey promoted ideologies that were nothing like secular humanism.
The reason in my mind why people would prefer a secular ethics as opposed to just some strict hedonism is because in order to live a good life, a genuinely, truly good life, that requires living without delusions. To think that you're better than the people around you, that there's something that makes you special while the people around you are not, like Nietzsche did, for example, is delusional. And people who are delusional about their entire lives, the value, the way that they fit into the lives of the people around them, if you are delusional about every single aspect of your life, then you can't live a good life. That's why a secular ethics that demands a commitment to things like justice, fairness, rights, equality is necessary.
Aren't you like making judgments about what is good? I mean, maybe to that person, just seeking pleasure is what is good to them. So who are you to tell them that they're wrong?
Yeah, the reason why those folks are wrong is because in order to live a good life, you yourself would need to be able to justifiably deem it a good life. That means that you need to be able to say, my life is a good life, and you need to have justification for the belief that your life is a good life. If you're delusional, then you don't have justification, which means that any good life, any concept of the good life at all is going to require you to not be delusional about these sorts of things.
Well, what if I don't place any value in saying what's good? I just want to feel good.
Then
What's
you're
wrong
not
with that?
pursuing the good. You're not doing what you should do. The good, by its very nature, is what's called normative in philosophy. Normative means that it gives us reasons for action. So, for example, if one more move on the chessboard wins you the chess game and that's your goal, we would say that you have a reason to move that piece there. It's about reasons for action. The good is normative. We say that you ought do good things. It's just like a trivialism. What that means is that if you're not pursuing the good, then you're not doing what you ought do, which means that you're behaving irrationally. And you cannot care about being rational, but it's in your own interest. If there are things that you want to achieve in life, your reason to be rational.
Yeah, I would jump in for a second to say, if you want to live your best life, I would argue that you also need to recognize that you're going to have to share space with other people, and you're going to benefit from sharing that space with other people, which means the consequences of your actions impact them and the consequences of their actions impact you. What you're asking to me is like saying, why should we go with game theory's optimal path if I don't care about winning?
Yeah, why shouldn't I just move my king into, mate and one in chess, Why not get checkmated? Well, it's irrational.
Uh-huh. I feel like you're saying but it comes down to how your brain or goals are structured. If I say I am on this world to get the most pleasure out of it, well, then that's one person's point of view. If the next person said, I'm here to have as many children as possible and win the evolutionary race or something like that, well, then that's how their brain's wired. And if your goal is make things as good for everyone as possible, well, that's what makes you happy. And you can say that ought to be, but you don't have anything to prove that that's what ought to be other than your opinion.
Well, there's a couple of things to say about that. Oh, sorry, Matt, were you saying something?
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
I just completely disagree.
There's a couple of things to say about that. These people, depending on how they're going about these things, may be contradicting themselves. That, these are going to be people who want to achieve specific goals, but they want to achieve them in ways that deny other people from achieving those same goals. So let's say that you wanted to achieve pleasure at the expense of other people's pleasure, I don't know, let's say that you want to go around like raping people, something horrible like that. You would need to claim the right to be able to do that while denying people the exact same freedom and well-being required for your action. You'd be contradicting yourself. You would need to say that in virtue of having goals, that you have a right to pursue all of these things. Meanwhile, you're denying other people who also have goals the right to avoid having that thing done to them.
Sure, but if they don't care what they don't feel, if they only care about what their own body and mind feel, and they don't care what other people feel, then how are you going to convince them otherwise? If they've decided that's the path. Or they want domination. They want
Tim,
this. They want that. I don't understand how you can tell
Sure.
them that they're wrong, other than you should do this. I don't get it.
Well, Tim, how can you tell somebody they're wrong if they don't give a shit if they're wrong?
Yeah.
But I don't think you've
Hey.
demonstrated they're wrong. You just your
No,
opinion.
Tim, are you one of those people that you're talking about?
No, I love animals, and I have few close friends, so I don't consider myself one of those people. But if your brain was wired in a certain way, and you convince
It's so
yourself
strange because
what
that's
you
not in the
want,
ballpark of what I was asking. I'm sure there are
so
people there.
you're accusing me
no,
of,
hang on, Tim.
being
Tim, hang on.
sociopath or something.
I'm sure there are people who are, in your super ridiculous hedonistic group who also love animals and wouldn't mind having friends. But the issue here is that if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I don't care about how to live a better life. I don't care about your life. I just want to have fun, and blow shit up and live as long as I can." Okay, so you take the goals that they have stated and you start evaluating the positions they're advocating for to see if those positions do in fact lead to their goals. Because I can tell you that living a long life isn't consistent with the sort of person you're describing. Because who do you go to when you get sick? Who's going to cover healthcare? Who's going to take care of you? We are communal creatures. And so it is kind of myopic to think that you don't need other people and can still have a good life, I think.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I think that there are benefits in fostering those things, but to that person, because you accrue the benefits of that. But I don't think it's a one-to-one. I think that there are people that are fake and they use other people's kindness. Obviously, I mean, it's all over the place. So that could be just as good for them.
But these people are contradicting themselves. They both want to say that they have some right to not get used, and then there's nothing that separates from themselves from these other people, and yet they don't extend that same right to these other people. But there's nothing that makes them different. They're being logically inconsistent. And if they don't care about that, then there's no point in trying to convince them, they're wrong. And if they don't care that they're wrong, then there's nothing else to say.
But if that dominates, then what are we supposed to do? If that mindset is pervasive, then if that proves to be beneficial for them getting ahead or something, I mean,
it doesn't.
I will say you would say it about our leader. You would say, I'm sure you'd say it about our president.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, this dude is absolutely contradicting himself. Yeah.
So how if that is being successful for him, and you'd consider him some kind of a sociopath or something like that, then how if he's been evolutionarily successful, he's had children, he's got power, how can you say objectively he's wrong other than you don't like it?
He's contradicting himself. He's wrong.
Yeah, you seem to be conflating whether or not the values are necessarily objective or whether the evaluations are necessarily objective. You can be objectively self-contradictory, whether or not you have the best value or not. But you're saying, what if you might as well be saying, hey, what if a bunch of psychopaths take over and we are no longer dealing with rational people? Okay, then why are we having a discussion about how to reason with people who aren't rational? I mean, if it's already happening, what is the better solution, Tim? I mean, I've never said that if religion goes away, secular humanism or something similar will necessarily win out, or that the world will be some utopia. I just think that I have the better moral system and the better moral understanding than any religion I've evaluated, and certainly better than people who don't pay attention to like simple things like within game theory. I don't know if you're familiar with like the prisoner's dilemma, but that's one dilemma that is, I would argue, colloquially solved. We know what the best, course of action is in those situations. Then there are other things like Newcomb's paradox, where you can have rational arguments come down on both sides. I only accept one side. I'm the one box side, but I see how and why those other people make those arguments. But you know what? I can have a discussion with anybody who understands Newcomb's paradox about what, whether they're a one boxer or a two boxer. I know you don't know what that means, but you should look it up. It's really good. I think Veritasium did a video very recently, if not this week, which is probably why I was reminded of it. But I can understand, and I don't think it's solvable. That's why it's listed as a paradox. I mean, I shouldn't say solvable. I don't think there's a clear solution to it yet. But if the answer is, well, we're having these discussions about what's the best course of action in this Newcomb's paradox game, and I'm a one boxer, and Ian's a two boxer, and you're I don't give a fuck, I'm going to rip open both the boxes and take a dump on him. Cool, you're not playing the game.
But I'm just getting that you're prescriptively saying what the game is, and I don't think they even see the same game that you see.
I'm sorry.
This cynicism in me, I see how the new atheist movement has evolved as I grew into adolescence, and a lot of it was an appeal to empathy and an appeal to morals, but those morals were those present in early atheist thinkers? It just seems like it's a pitch to win people over from religion.
I don't know if you are conscious that you're doing this, but you keep switching between philosophy and then to like some like pragmatic, like hypothetical, like what should you do if every single person in the world is coming to beat you up at your apartment right this second? If you want to have the philosophy discussion, that discussion starts and ends with what do people have reasons to do? And then we can determine who is behaving rationally in line with what they have reasons to do and who isn't. The hedonists are not behaving rationally. They're going through their bodies in ways that are going to be absolutely catastrophic when they get older. They're not building the communities that are going to be necessary in order to live a good life. These people are not operating rationally. But then when this gets pointed out to you, you want to shift to like a pragmatic conversation of like, well, what do we do if it's like a bunch of pedophiles, the country's 98% composed of them, and they just really want to do it. Like, what do we do then? Well, in a situation like that, like, fuck, I don't know. Like, it's not even like a philosophical question at that point. It's just like a strange hypothetical.
What are you worried about, Tim?
I'm still not. I'm still not understanding how you can say that the hedonistic person is irrational. Their rationality tells them what feels good, what is good.
Tim, would you agree that someone who states what their goals are and then acts in a way that is not designed to reach those goals, would you agree that they're acting irrationally?
Yes.
That's all we're saying, or that's all I was saying.
Yep. Totally agree. That's all I'm saying too. Just that these people have a specific goal that gives them a specific reason for action, and that they're not responding properly to those reasons.
You seem to be looking for, here is the absolute moral standard, and this is the one and only right one, and the atheists have found it. And I don't know about Ian, but I find that to be beyond asinine. Like, there are facts that can be discovered about. There are aspects of moral realism that bear out, which is if I want to live and I want to have a good life, there are certain facts of me sharing space with other people that dictate the consequences of my action, both physically and socially and psychologically. We are learning about those things continually, and so we're improving our understanding of what might be in our best interest. But anybody who's telling you that they have the absolute correct moral view, I think they completely skipped quite a bit of moral philosophy.
Well, I mean, what do you say to an atheist thinker who rejects morality altogether?
That they're wrong?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to have hypothetical situations with you, Tim, because I don't, no offense to you, because we've had conversations like this before. I don't think I could have that conversation with you because you don't hold that position or understand the positions enough to defend it. So asking me what I'd say to some hypothetical dude that you're inventing, I don't know that's going to get us anywhere. Find somebody that thinks that, and well, Ian and I will have the conversation with them.
It's not hypothetical because
it is.
Sadism is named after an atheist philosopher who believed there was no morality.
Wait, sorry, that person wasn't a philosopher. It was like a literary guy. No morality. That dude was not a philosopher. He wrote like one book that was like deeply sick and twisted. This was like an author. This wasn't like a philosopher.
And so what if it was?
So it's not just hypothetical. I mean,
no. It's absolutely hypothetical. You are concerned that if atheism wins out, because people are looking for something that atheism can't provide, that the world will decay into, godless abandon and hedonism, and there'll be nothing to keep people in line. And yet the overwhelming majority of current atheists are not only advocating for moral systems that are good, but better than the ones being advocated for by religion. Or religions, I should say.
Because to my opinion, you're doing the same thing that many religions do, which is appear weak, and then when you have power, then you switch up.
Okay, well, Tim, I would say in the kindest possible terms,
and that's,
you don't have a clue what you're talking about, and fuck you for accusing us all of being dishonest liars. I mean, do you think that if I was emperor of the universe, do you think I'd be a monumental dick seeking power and trying to destroy everything? Or do you think that I would stand by the words of what I said?
You personally? I think that you have certain principles, but just because that applies to you doesn't mean it applies to your entire movement and everybody.
Correct. There are going to be people in my movement and people around me who have a worse understanding of all of this than you do.
And you're just hoping that they all come to the conclusion that you cannot objectively prove other than saying that it's irrational.
Tim, I'm not hoping they come to a conclusion. I care about the truth. I'm telling people what I think is true and why. I'm telling people what I think is good and why. You seem to think that there's some strategy behind this. You just accused, you said, well, you seem to be doing the same thing the religious people do, is you're going to appear weak until you have power. You not only have a cynical view, you have an unfounded cynical view, and you are accusing the bulk of having nefarious goals. My only goal is the truth. If it turns out there's a moral system that's superior to mine that leads to a better world, that's the one I change to instantly as soon as the evidence supports it.
Well, when that's human nature, it becomes, the burden becomes on the other person to say, no, we're different. It's not, the burden's not on me to prove that people are going to act in line with, not going to act in line with the way they always have, just because of this supposedly superior moral philosophy.
Maybe we could explore like the concrete example that you brought up, the Marquis de Sade person, the inventor of sadism. This person was systematically wrong about a whole host of beliefs. Based on his works, he deeply devalued a lot of people. But if you were to go up to him and ask him, well, what makes you valuable and them not valuable, he would have nothing to say. There is nothing that makes him any more valuable than they are. He's delusional. He thinks that he has way more value than other people, and that justifies mistreating all sorts of other people, when in fact he has no rational basis for this. There's nothing in virtue of which he's more valuable than they are. He's delusional.
True, but you have more value to your mother than someone else does.
I'm not intrinsically more valuable than anybody.
But your mother is going to treat you as more valuable because she's biologically wired to care more for you.
Yep. Yeah. There's a certain level of intrinsic value that we need to treat every single person as having. Otherwise, we fall into delusion. But then if somebody occupies a special role in your life, then yeah, you can value them more. You value them because they make up a significant portion of your life. And if you fail to do so, then you're delusional.
Okay, and he said that he as himself is playing the most special role because he's himself. He says that is all the value. That's his.
But he would think the same
judgment.
thing if he was somebody else, which is why he's delusional. If he was somebody else, he could run through the same argument and come to the exact opposite conclusion. He's delusional.
He could, but he's not. So
there's no rational basis.
An objective reality for that person.
There's no rational basis for him to claim to be more valuable than anybody else for the reason that I just explained. If he were somebody else, the argument that, well, I'm more valuable just because I'm me, without going into like some specific property about you that makes you more valuable. Well, if you were that guy over there, you would think the exact same thing, which is delusional.
What? Well, the property to yourself is that you experience life, and without your body and mind, that ends. No one else can grant that to you except your own body and mind. So that.
But what property do you have that makes you more valuable than other people?
If I say I can experience with this body and this mind, and that's the only one I can do so with. The next person cannot provide that to me. Therefore, yourself is everything.
So the property specifically is that you're able to experience with a body. That's what makes you more valuable?
Well, because if you die, then you're not going to experience
everybody
anything.
else experiences with a body too, which means that you're not more valuable. You just proved my point for me. Everybody else also experiences with a body. So if your basis for saying I'm more valuable than other people is, well, I experience things with a body. Well, Matt experiences things with a body. I experience things with a body. Everybody does.
Sure.
It's delusional.
You can't experience it for me. And
I don't need to.
You can't experience
You need to
it
name
for me.
a property that would make you more valuable than I am. And if you can't, then to think that you are more valuable than me is delusional.
More valuable to oneself, but maybe not more valuable to the next person. But that just depends. But if one decides that if the next person dies, that's not going to affect whether I'm still alive. Well, it'll affect them in some kind of way, but
no.
Not in the
Tim, if you decide that you're the only thing that matters to you, and I decide that I'm the only thing that matters to me, how do we resolve conflicts between the two of us when our lives come into crossing streams?
I don't think there's any contradiction.
No.
I mean,
you and I live next door to each other, and food is now scarce. And there's a deer that's standing out in front of us, and we both want it. You want it because you're the only thing that matters to you, and I want it because I'm the only thing that matters to me. How do we resolve that?
Either you might come to an agreement. If I come to an agreement,
isn't that basically what we're talking about when we talk about game theory and secular humanism, that there's a recognition that we share space with limited resources and that your desires and actions have consequences for me and vice versa? And so the best thing for us to do might be to share that deer?
Yeah, it does.
Cool. Thanks for making my point
deal with
for me.
game theory. Yeah, but however, that's totally separate to whether I intrinsically think the next person has value.
I don't care what you think. You could think that nobody has value but you. But if you I've pointed out many times that I think you can come to a proper moral understanding beginning with nothing but selfishness. Because if all I want is for my life to be good, one of the first things that needs to happen is that I need to recognize I can't make these glasses. I don't know about prescriptions for glasses. I'm not a doctor. I can't heal myself. I'm going to be limited in what food I can do. And the older I get, the more difficult it's going to get. I have lots of limitations. I don't turn oil into petroleum and then and into gasoline and then use that to drive. I don't have the capabilities of doing this stuff. What kind of life am I going to live? I'd like to be able to watch movies, and that means I need to support the people and all the things. It's a massive network, and it is only a myopic perception that even the thing that you're worried about is so ridiculously myopic that I can't believe we spent this much time on.
Okay, I just think that you're only, and I maybe you want to get to the next call or whatever, but I'll just say I just think that you're only focused on
Tim, in this entire conversation, when did I appeal to intrinsic value? When did I even acknowledge that there is such a thing as intrinsic value? The answer is not once, because my position isn't based in any way on whether or not there is intrinsic value. I think value is not intrinsic.
So, if someone was disabled, I imagine you would still want, and they would grow up and they would live in a home or something, and they would just not be very productive to society. We've decided that we still want to care for that person based on, I imagine, some intrinsic value of them. Even if they
stop. I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to stop right here and let Ian take. Tim, listen to me. I'm going to stop right here and let Ian take the rest of us, because you need to really stop imagining what I would do, because you suck at it. But Ian's probably got a better answer than I do.
Well, I was just going to point out that if you get old enough, you're going to become the person who is disabled, who needs people to care for him. You're going to want these sorts of structures where people take care of disabled people without requiring them to do work that they can't do, because one day that'll be you.
Sure, but we have Social Security, which is a trade for, current labor for later care. That's not, I don't consider that quite the same as someone who was just unable to work in the first place.
Do you think that we should just let people die in the streets?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think if you don't have any, if you have no appeal to something higher than an intrinsic value of someone, then who's to say that that's not the case?
Aren't you a deist? You say that as if that's a thing that you have.
Well, yeah, because I believe that a creator made this world and values his creation, but
in virtue of what are we valuable? In virtue of what are we valuable? Why does God valuing us make us valuable? Also, that sounds an awful lot like extrinsic value, to be clear. It sounds an awful lot like God imbued us with value.
Well, otherwise, how do you get to...
So it sounds like your view
tell the person that they're wrong.
You literally can't even defend your own view. I asked you 2 questions about it, and you're already folding on it.
Yeah, you should also look up the first word in Social Security, because it requires a society to work cooperatively.
Sure, but if people are just coming to the world and they're unable to work, they're not necessarily... We're not caring for them because necessary. We're caring them for them because they have an intrinsic value as a human being.
If God intrinsically values them, then why wouldn't he, I don't know, make it such that these are like never situations that could happen?
I don't know. I believe in next life, so maybe this is just a phase for them. That's what I believe in, but I don't know. I don't know entirely.
Okay. Well, I mean, my follow-up question to that, and it's you're probably going to say I don't know again, which is totally fine. But I mean, why not just start with the next phase? I mean, how is it fair to the people that get born with like horrible diseases that they have to endure these horrible diseases?
I don't know. One way I've thought about it is that, and I don't know. I could be wrong.
You are.
But one way I've thought about it is that the only way to justify and rationalize what a creator might have thought is like you have to really suffer to really be very happy. So there's a hope that in the next life that I believe in that they will have a very joyous and positive experience instead of a negative one, and maybe I don't know if they'll remember it. I don't know. I don't know that much.
If you're right, I hope you're right, Tim, because everybody who's listened to a call with you will definitely have an improved next life.
Yeah, I'm right now, right this second, I'm grinding away for the afterlife. I'm putting in a shift.
Sure.
You're basically, Tim, as a deist, and you're also kind of misrepresenting deism because a deistic God's non-interventionist, and there's no reason to think that a deistic God cares. But no matter what God you think exists, no matter whether or not it values people, that doesn't change whether or not people have intrinsic value, and it doesn't change whether or not people value each other. So you are, like theists, objecting to a problem in a secular moral system that is not demonstrably an actual problem to be worried about and is not in any way resolved by a
if a disabled person suffering grants them better afterlife privileges, why would we ever try to stop their suffering?
I don't know necessarily that is the case. I don't know. I don't know necessarily. I mean, there's arguments for euthanasia. Is the life that they have, that the good experiences, is it worth? I mean, that's a whole different moral debate, I guess.
I hear you, but it sounds like your specific solution is that you're saying that it's fine that people have to suffer horrifically from things that they had no control over because it's going to be made up to them in the afterlife. But if that's true, then why would we stop them from suffering horrifically? When we see somebody, like, for example, a great example is Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. It's this horrible disease that causes 2-year-olds to compulsively gouge their own eyes out. It's awful. Why would we stop them from doing that? If the more pain they experience here, the better the afterlife is going to be. It just seems like we would be incentivized, if we care about them, to just let them suffer, under your view, at least.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm a determinist, so I just think if we were going to do that, then that's what we're going to do.
Okay. I don't see why we would have any reason, under your view, to help these people. In fact, it kind of seems like we have a good reason to not help them.
That's something that goes on. Well, whatever suffering they are going to go through, they're still going to go through it in the meantime, whether we end it early or, So I'd like to, I guess that's just a rationalization that I could see for it, but obviously that doesn't.
So Tim, you're also saying you're a deist who believes in an afterlife and that the afterlife is going to be better. How can any deist possibly have a justification for that, anything beyond wishful thinking?
Because how can I have a justification for an afterlife? Well,
How can you have a justification for
you
your
tell me
beliefs
why?
about the
I've
quality
heard your.
I'm sorry, I was still saying that. How can you have any justification for your beliefs about an afterlife quality or how you get there if you're a deist and your God is non-interventionist? That means you cannot know what that God thinks or what the afterlife is like.
Well, I don't believe that God is interventionist in this life, but I think that it has can have consequences for the whatever is next. And can I ask you a question, because your co-host had said the fact that there's one universe signals that there's probably more universes. So do you think that applying that same logic to say that we've had one life means that we'll probably have another life?
Tim, neither of us said that or anything like it as far as we can recall.
Sure.
So where did you hear that?
Aaron Adair.
Oh, that's not today's co-host. That's somebody else on the network. You should call back when Aaron is on and ask Aaron what he meant.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's a good point. Well, like I said, to go back to my original point, I just don't see that how you can tell someone that their prerogative is wrong and yours is right when you have no higher justification other than your own opinion.
Yeah, and likewise, on your worldview, it seems like you're heavily incentivized to let disabled people like suffer and die.
Even encourage it.
Okay, well, I don't feel that
the more suffering, the better under your worldview.
Well,
that's
if you don't feel that way, then you are demonstrably irrational. You now have beliefs that are in conflict, which by your own admission is irrational, because you think that the afterlife that's coming is better the more you suffer here, which means your position should then be to encourage suffering here, which, by the way, is consistent in some ways with Mother Teresa, who had a similar view about suffering here and what would happen in an afterlife, and she was a monster. So congrats, you're in good company.
Well, Matt, I will just say I think that I that's a rationalization. So
what's a rationalization?
That's how I could. So I am rationalizing how that.
Okay. Why are you okay with? Do you know what rationalizing means? Do you think it's rational to rationalize, or is it irrational?
It can be irrational, but I needed to answer him on the spot.
It not only can be irrational. Okay. Can it be rational?
Mm-hmm.
Can it be rational?
Can it be rational to rationalize?
Yeah, you said rationalizing can be irrational. We knew that. That's the point. Can it be rational?
If you want to view the hypothesis in a light most favorable.
Yeah, we use the term rationalizing when someone is not being rational but wants to pretend at being rational. That's literally what it means. And so if you're admitting that you're rationalizing, you are admitting that you are being irrational, and you are engaging in swallowing an entire bottle of copium.
Matt, he had asked me how that could be consistent, and I hadn't thought about that. And so I gave him a way off the top of my head how that could be.
I don't need you. Tim, I never need you to explain what happened. I pay attention here on the show. I only need you to acknowledge that you're being irrational and then go figure out why you're okay with it.
Sure. Like I said, I just think it comes down to the opinion of what you think is right to do.
I genuinely don't care until you go off and figure out why you're okay being irrational.
Okay, Matt.
I don't care what you feel, what you think. Why should I care what you feel or think if you're knowingly, willingly, eagerly being irrational?
That's a loaded question, but
it's not a loaded question. It's a genuine question.
I want you to have a good night.
Tim, would you value the thoughts of someone who was admittedly irrational?
No, I didn't say that. I was irrational,
and I don't either.
And the original point.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tim. I don't either. So we're at least we're consistent there. But I have other people on hold who I'm hoping are rational and who do care about being rational. And I don't need you to tell me that you're just giving me your opinion. Nobody here cares about your opinion if you're irrational.
Matt, you still can't defend the position. You
I literally
defend
have
why.
defended. Do you know how embarrassing it's going to look when this clip goes up after Ian and I both thoroughly defended secular morality?
Why you should follow your morality?
Still thoroughly defended secular. I'm sorry. I'm talking. Do I have to mute you, Tim? Do I have to mute you, Tim? Do I have to mute you?
Okay.
Yeah. We thoroughly defended secular morality independently and jointly and talked about all the various aspects. And it is only your failed understanding of morality and your requirement that there be some absolute, some foundation, something you can point to say this is you're absolutely wrong, while also admitting that you are irrational, that you know you're irrational, and you don't care if you're irrational. But you go ahead and pretend like you schooled us and that we failed here.
The burden of proof is on you to prove.
No, sir.
The burden of proof is on you.
No, sir. The burden of proof is on you to demonstrate that our system is a problem. Okay, I'm going to mute you, Tim, because you're really bad at waiting. The burden of proof is on you to show that we did not defend our position. We've already met our burden of proof that you do not understand the position. You have already acknowledged that you are irrational and evidently okay with that. You are the one that repeatedly did not understand, misrepresented what we said, and even tried to reference what somebody else said somewhere else, got the whole thing about sadism wrong, don't understand the difference between objective and subjective and absolute and non-absolute, or absolute and relative. You can sit there all day long and think that we didn't solve the problem that you presented when you didn't present a problem. There is no problem with secular ethics that is in any way solved by your view or by any religious view. So at best, you're saying, wow, none of us have an idea what's going on. And we're saying, I can understand why you would think that, but some of us do have an understanding of what's going on, which is why when I presented you with a scenario where two people only cared about themselves, your first solution was cooperation. It's why when we asked you about how to resolve this and why you're not worried about certain things, it's why you appealed to Social Security, which doesn't exist if you're alone. Sorry, Ian, you had something to say.
Yeah, sorry. No, I thought you're done. My bad. Yeah, I mean, we spent 30 minutes. I looked back at the recording. 30 minutes spent defending secular ethics, and no contradiction in either of our views. There's no inconsistency in our views. It seems like the defense that we gave was adequate. And then we talk about his view for like 2 seconds, instant contradiction.
Yep. And we lost a theistic caller. So Tim, I'm going to unmute you so you can say goodbye and we'll move on to some other callers.
The burden of proof is on you. You're asserting that your morality is right. You haven't proven it.
And we defended it, yeah.
And we did, Tim.
You haven't proven it. No, you haven't.
You can watch the replay. Just check. It's going to be posted on YouTube. Just check the replay.
It's proven that...
If you're confused as to whether or not we proved it, you should just watch like the first 30 minutes of this conversation. I think it's going to be like very
You should get a Nobel Prize for that.
And if you want like further verification on that point, you should read the side chat while you're rewatching this clip.
Sure.
The only thing I needed to demonstrate, Tim, because my position isn't that there's an absolute... I could be
wrong about everything. It wouldn't make you right.
Tim, are you going to let me finish? I brought you in so you could say goodbye, but you decided to add some more. So here, I'm going to do this real quick. I never claimed to have the absolute correct morality. My position is that my moral views are superior to yours, and I thoroughly demonstrated that. My moral views are also superior to the hedonist fictional characters that you are worried the entire world will become, despite not having evidence that is a real serious risk. You are just like the MAGA people who are trying to pretend like there's serious voter corruption, and so they're willing to shut everything down to prevent a 0.054% thing. You are trying to pretend like you have the position that you don't have to defend, and you try to put the burden of proof on us, which we already met. You didn't do anything but acknowledge your irrationality and whine about how you don't like our answer. Well, too bad. Anything else? Yeah, yeah. Anything else before you say goodbye?
So what did you meet the burden of proof on?
That my moral view is superior to yours, that my understanding of morality is superior to yours, and that Ian's is superior to both of ours.
I'm flattered.
By what standard?
By the standard of rationality, by the standards of are you going to let me answer the question you asked, Tim?
Let's go.
Tim, are you going to let me answer the question you asked? I'm sitting here answering your question, and you just won't let me answer it. The standards are rationality, and which demonstrably leads to a better world.
Sure. We can go back. If we go back to your problem with the two neighbors, they're in the forest. What happens if one decides he kills the next one and takes all his stuff? Maybe that's better for him. There goes your morality. It's out the window.
No, my morality isn't out the window. That person was acting immorally, and they decided to take a risk that is demonstrably less likely to be successful than cooperation, which we already know.
Maybe he calculated and he determined otherwise.
Maybe he's wrong, right, Tim?
He could. The next time he needs help with something,
maybe he's
guess
wrong.
How it's going to go.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, next time you need help, help yourself. And then call me on the time after that. See you later. How wild.
Yeah.
We had a theist caller, but we lost the theist caller. I get it. Tim's not, let's say, everybody's cup of tea.
Yep. I don't know. It's just like the typical dialogue tree that gets run these days. They're unable to conceptualize the idea of arriving at what you should do on the basis of your goals. They think that what you should do is just something that like a father figure points at you and demands of you.
Yeah, there is this fear, and I understand this part. I mean, I understand, it's common enough. It's not like, Tim's absolutely clueless and saying something bizarre. Without God, all things are permissible. But that view is, yes, all things are permissible. But by the way, all things are still permissible with God. It's just that there's a promise that God might, in some cases, might punish you in an afterlife or might reward you in an afterlife. How do you know there's not a God that's going to reward you for killing the most people? Maybe this is just a big game of Rust or something.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a thought experiment that I like to think about. If there was a button in front of you, pushing that button cures cancer, would you push that button? I mean, presumably everybody says yes, they would, but then think about it. Like, would a morally perfect God with infinite knowledge push that same button? Well, if he exists, he certainly hasn't done that. So it kind of seems like if a God who's all good and omniscient exists, then we shouldn't be pushing that button either. He clearly knows something that we don't. So it just seems like everything is permissible if God does exist, exactly like you're saying.
We had the other theist that we were calling, I think may have hung up because the specific question, and we have a new theist, which I will get to you in just a minute. The specific question that they had in the call screener note was, without God, what do you use to ground morality? And I was hoping that in the course of that discussion with Tim, we would answer that person's question. And I think that we did. And I've given my answer a bunch of times. When people ask you, how do you ground morality? What answer are you likely to give?
The answer that I give is that it's grounded in laws of logic. Acting in contradictory ways is inherently irrational. If you have a goal and, this is your primary objective, and in order to achieve that goal, you need to do a specific thing or have a specific thing, you have a reason to do that. I think all ethics are ultimately going to come back to the goals that we have. And there are also specific things that everybody needs in order to achieve any goal. Like, for example, freedom and well-being. Just because I'm an agent and I have goals and I pursue these goals, I'm also going to need the freedom and well-being to do that. But in order to remain logically consistent in line with the law of non-contradiction, in order to not be irrational and delusional, that means that I'm going to need to extend the same freedom and well-being to other people and not interfere with their freedom and well-being insofar as they're not interfering with mine.
I'm glad you said that. I highly recommend. I know the reason I remembered Newcomb's paradox because it's not something I regularly mention, but it's something I've thought about many times over the years. But I know that I'm pretty confident that Veritasium just released a video, probably in the last couple of days, that I probably played in the background, and that reminded me. But one of the things is that this particular paradox, which I'm not going to go through because I want to get to callers, it has implications that could leak out to not just to morality, but it may be the case, and this is why it's so interesting for thought experiments, that what Ian said is fundamentally right and yet ultimately partially wrong. That in order for Ian's view to even work, we have to have some people who are not going to be rational. You know, like if everybody acts perfectly rational, that can change things, because then you also got the room for somebody to exploit that and everything else. So you may need some irrational actors. So it may be that the very thing that Tim was worried would take over the world is essentially the noise in the system that makes it identifiable as a system. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't want to ramble for too long, but you've really got me thinking. Kant famously talks about treating everybody as an end in themselves, which, for those of us who don't know, all that really means is that you shouldn't be using people only to try to achieve your goals without any regard for them or their goals. You should be treating everybody as if they have their own goals and not using them and exploiting them and like infringing on their autonomy. But Kant has a famous problem in his system, which that when faced with evil actors, Kant's system leaves you powerless. If there's a Nazi at your door demanding to know if you have Jewish people hiding in your attic, Kant tells you you actually can't lie to the Nazi. It's impermissible. It violates his autonomy. But I do think that if everybody's acting rationally, then the Kantian system of ethics probably works. That if we just all treat each other as valuable beings who all have our own goals and things that we're trying to achieve, and we're not allowed to use each other without any regard to other people's goals, I think that would probably be a utopic society.
I think there's a number of viable systems, and I've talked about them. Sam Harris talked about them. The two of us talked about them when we were on tour together about what the subtle differences are. But let's get on. We've got some theist calls, and some of them want to, actually dig in on some stuff. So, Julio is, whoops, the click didn't work. There we go. Julio's calling from Pennsylvania. Runs or he, him wants to talk about the topic, the existence of God. Welcome to the show, Julio. You're on with Ian and maybe me. Allegedly Ian and maybe me.
How you doing, man? I'm sorry. Just give me 1 minute. Sorry, one minute.
All right.
Give me the wrong number.
Is this a joke? 1 minute.
We should start this over once the caller gets back, because this is a terrible way to start a clip.
Yeah, I'm just going to put Julio back in the queue because we got another theist waiting, and I think it's disrespectful to keep them waiting when we're being kind of put on hold there. So Jacob's calling from New York. Pronouns are he, him. Jacob's a theist, wants to talk about aliens intermingling with humans. Hey, Jacob, do you think it's happening?
How you doing? Yeah, this potentially happened a really long time ago, but I'll cite some information and why it's important in modern politics and all that. For starters, we'll go all the way back to the Book of Enoch, and this was in an Ethiopian Bible. Whether or not you're religious or not, it's just text. I'm just citing it as information. But in these 3 books of Enoch, it describes how these people, specifically Anunnaki, came down and taught humans how to do all sorts of interesting stuff. They had kids with us, and that created Nephilim. And some of those Nephilim later became a royalty line in ancient Sumeria. Now, there's all sorts of stuff that I can talk on about that, but to keep it short and simple, it's a contradiction within the Bible. If you read the first part of Genesis, this is the very first part of the Bible if you open it up. that continues from after Enoch. And Enoch is kind of like the center point and it explains how all this turmoil came about. It's kind of interesting, but it's far out there. If you're just a normal lad like me, you read it, you can easily scoff at it. However, when we get into the modern issues of like UFOs and whatnot, we've been in America's been in a Cold War with China and Russia since Roswell.
Jacob,
we've had
Jacob,
exotic technology and
Jacob?
stuff that has been.
Jacob, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I need to reel
Yes,
you
sir.
in because, first of all, the idea that you think we didn't know Genesis was the first book of the Bible is bizarre. But you've gone from Enoch and the Anunnaki to current events and political history. I really need you to get to whatever point you're making so that Ian and I can address it.
You got it. Yeah. My final point being is that the interesting and moral aspect of it is that certain people descend from stuff that's not here on Earth. And it was a very complicated thing to inadvertently put into a Bible that's going to be translated for everybody.
This is a risky question. Which group of people do you think descend from aliens?
Depends on how far you're looking back. We destroyed ourselves a long time ago.
Is there like a specific like ethno-religious group that you have in mind?
I guess it was the Sumerians because they documented it, but it's like the only documentation of it, assuming you take it for truth.
Do you think like Middle Eastern people? Maybe I'm confused about where Samaria is. I think it's the Middle East.
It was it's close to that. It was where Mesopotamia was, kind of like the.
Do you think that those people descend from aliens?
Center of everything.
And if they descend from aliens, crazy, why is that like literally just not present at all in their DNA? When you compare their DNA to ours, it's like 99.9999999% similar.
Of course, but we wouldn't know that.
You
and me are both descended from people of that region from thousands of years ago.
No. If you're claiming that there's a group of people who are distinct because they are descended from something not of this earth, apart from this old storybook, we would then look for some sort of evidence. If the DNA variance between me, if the DNA variance between me and a member of that group and me and another person who's not a member of that group and any random person and a member of that group, if the DNA difference is all the same there, what are you using to be able to identify that? And what's the difference? How are they different?
Okay, here, 1 sec. I didn't mean to claim this as absolute fact. It's just a potentiality.
But do we have literally any reason to think that it's true?
As myself, I'm Native American, and
we have any reason to think it's even possible, let alone probable.
Oh, not for that. Aside from Sumerian text, but there are.
Do you have any way? Jacob? Do you know of any way? Do you know of any way that we could detect if we how could if we lined up everybody on the earth? Is there any way anyone could detect that person A is or is not a member of that group?
No.
Then what difference could it possibly make? You've latched on to an antique story.
If you get a third primary source,
hang on.
If we get other people,
you don't tell me to hang on my show, bro.
I was just gonna. You haven't let me finish.
All right, I'm gonna have to mute you because you don't know how this works. You're looking at an old storybook and you're picking a particular story out of a bunch of old stories, and there's tons of them. They get used by, you left, you hung up, you ran away. Gosh, Jacob. I'm really sorry that common decency and getting schooled on the ridiculousness of your proposition was too much for you, but I'm going to continue. You know why I'm going to continue? It's my fucking show. So you, like many other people, found a story in an old book that you think is significant or that has some value to you or something you like. It resonated with you in some way. And you then decided you were going to adopt this as your cause du jour and go out and find out what you could find out about it. And then on the very first occasion where someone said, hey, apart from it's in an old storybook, which applies to all the other things that you don't believe, what method could you use to verify this is true? And you said, you can't. You then decided to throw a fit and run away for being called out for it.
Not a lot of
that's bizarre to
confidence in
me.
his position. I don't know. You thought it was like story time and we're like fucking swapping tales as opposed to trying to determine what the truth is of the matter by going through the evidence and thinking critically. I don't know. I never understand why people behave this way.
I think I would have rather listened to dead air on Julio while we waited and had some other conversation than have somebody call in and say, ooh, let me tell you this story that I can't prove. And if you point out that I can't prove it, I'm going to cry and run away.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, this is one of many call-in shows here on the Line Network. This is my Wednesday night show, and huge thank you to AllegedlyIan for being here today. Tomorrow, the Transatlantic Call-In Show is live at 2 p.m. Central. And on the weekends, we have the Sunday show at 1 p.m. Central and the Sunday show after dark at 6, I think is when it is. Maybe 7 now. There's and then there's usually a Calling It Now or Cus I Wanna in between there. There's a number of other shows. On Monday, Skeptalk at 6 p.m. Central, and Tuesdays, Chewed Gum at 6 p.m. Central. All of those shows are open for you to call into. They cover a number of different things. The Sunday shows tend to focus more on religion. Monday tends to focus more on science and skepticism and maybe curious things like would we prove the Anunnaki descendants genetically? I don't know. Tuesday, Chewed Gum, one of the best shows on the network. It's nothing but women talking about women's issues from a secular perspective. In particular, the impact that certain religious views have had on women's rights, women's freedoms, purity culture, sexuality. It is a great opportunity. And then Thursday's afternoon show is the Transatlantic Call-In Show. That is where you can actually call in and talk to some real live trans folks with their lived experience and their understanding who study all this stuff all the time. And they will be there so that if you've been called a transphobe, you can call and find out why and maybe figure out how to correct it. Or if you're probably a transphobe, you can call in and tell those folks what for. You can let them know just how vile you think they are, and we can all point and laugh. But it's an opportunity, basically, if you have questions about trans rights and trans issues, to call in and address that. A number of other shows and opportunities here. Everything's call in. And because it's all call in, we're going to try Julio again, who put us on hold. So Julio's calling from Pennsylvania. Pronouns are he, him. He's a theist who wants to talk about the existence of God. Hey, Julio, you're on with AllegedlyIan and possibly me.
Oh, hey, how you doing, Matt?
I'm all right. Why don't you ask Ian how he's doing?
Yeah, what am I? Chopped liver?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's a little bit surreal that I'm actually talking to you, Matt. I watch a lot of your debates, and just want to say that I think that you are a pretty good debater in your own right.
Well, clearly not good enough because you're still calling in as a theist. So I don't know if we're going to fix that today, but let's talk.
Yeah. So regarding the evidence, or if I can prove if God exists, I would actually like to ask, what would constitute as enough evidence for me to prove that a God exists?
I have no idea.
I can try to.
I have no idea and I'm gonna stop after this because everybody's heard my answer 500 times, and I want to get Ian's answer, but I can't possibly tell you what would constitute evidence without you making specific claims about the nature and features of your God. But also possibly not then. But my stock answer is that what most people refer to as God, if that being is real and exists, then that being should know exactly what would change my mind. And that being should be capable of providing that which would change my mind. And because that has not happened, that means that being either does not exist or does not want me to know it exists. Either way, it's not my problem.
Okay, so can you entertain a possibility that it might just be us not really looking at the evidence that we already have? So, for instance, this is probably going to sound a little bit shallow, but just the fact that we exist. Like, what is a better explanation as to why we exist, other than a God created us? Yeah, that would be a way to go.
Yeah, maybe like evolution for start. Also, there's like a lot of things that your view on things leaves completely unexplained. If what God wants is us, it's really weird that he made this entire universe, most of which we will never see, interact with, or explore.
What do you mean? In what sense?
Yeah, the universe is full of like 100 trillion different planets. I think it's even way more than that, actually. We're never going to explore hardly any of these. We'll never scratch the surface of understanding the universe. Most of the universe is just completely empty. If God wanted humans, then why does it look like we just happened to come about because the conditions were right? Why is there so much emptiness around us? This is exactly what I would expect to see if humans come about via things like laws of physics, chemistry, biological interactions, things like that. But it's really unexpected if God designed the universe because he wanted humans that we would see so much of it absent of humans and not even on human scale.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. So basically, you're saying that because this universe is so vast and so broad,
And so empty.
because there's no other, yeah, so empty, right? But how would that, if I may ask, like, how would that negate the existence of God? Wouldn't that display that
Why would
he is
God make it
very,
so empty?
but I mean, empty like with life form like us, or because I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
empty
lot
of
of
life.
stars and a lot
Yeah.
of,
There's all these planets with nothing going on. Yeah.
Can I jump in for 1 second? Because I think I have a question that kind of clarifies this. If somebody told you that your mom loved you and wanted you to eat right, and so she packed your lunchbox, and you got to school and opened it, and your lunchbox was empty, would you believe them?
well, no, but I think that's a false equivalency in a sense, because I mean, I don't know how that would correlate to what the other gentleman just explained about the universe being empty.
The
Because I
universe
mean,
being
we're not
empty, like your
technically alone.
lunchbox being empty? Yeah, I don't know how that correlates either. Sorry. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, well, the point of like the lunchbox example is just that your claim, much like the mother's claim, is that God wants this universe for humans. God wants humans a lot, and that's why he made the universe in the first place. But when I look around the universe, there's humans on one teeny tiny part of it. Most of it is completely empty, completely absent of humans. When I look around the lunchbox, it's empty. Maybe there's like there's like a crumb of sandwich somewhere in there. I'm just not convinced that the primary purpose of the lunchbox, or when my mom gave it to me, was to feed me. And if it was, she's certainly doing a bad job of it.
Well, that's presupposing that God would want to create a life outside of this planet that we already live in, and we don't
And why
really
create things outside
know
this
that.
planet at all?
Because if God said, okay, so you're saying that if God were to love us, that he would create other lives in other planets?
I'm just confused as to why this
having a hard time
massive
understanding.
galaxy exists, but there aren't life forms out there. And in fact, we're not even going to see most of it. It's not even like we're going to be able to look up and see and appreciate its beauty. It's so far away from us that we have no idea what it looks like.
I still don't see how, therefore, God does not exist.
Why would God make it is the question.
I mean, why would he have to in order for him to show or prove that he exists? I mean, if life on Earth is not proven enough, then I don't think anything else that he will create.
I'm sorry, this was
one of us.
Julio, neither Ian nor me are saying, hey, because of all this space, therefore God doesn't exist. We're not asserting that God doesn't exist for this reason, although we may for other reasons. The burden of proof is on the people who are saying there's a God. And the people who are claiming there's a God are giving us characteristics about their God and what their God wants and everything else. And that is inconsistent with what we observe in the natural world. If, for example, there are stars that we have just discovered that we will never interact with, that are too far away to have any recognizable impact on anything, including what you can't even see them without optics, which means the vast majority of people who've ever lived and existed had no clue they were there. It didn't impact a thing. So why is it there? I'm not saying, and I don't think Ian is saying,
Nope.
hey, there's no scenario under which there's a God who would also have made a star that we don't know about and nobody's ever going to know about. We're just saying that is one of many things that does not make sense. And when I talked about, when Ian talked about the universe being empty, and I made an analogy to an empty lunchbox, and he corrected it to scraps, which was great. We're saying you have a God that you believe in. It would probably be best if you told us what your God is and what it wants, and how you know what it is and what it wants. Because if what you claim about your God is inconsistent with what we observe about reality, then your God doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And if what you're saying about your God is not only consistent with reality, but is the most consistent with reality, it would be a good explanation for what we observe, then I might determine that you're rational and therefore accept your claim. So what God are we talking about?
I can't hear him anymore.
What?
I think he cut off. Hello?
What?
He cut off. Matt Dillahunty, he cut off.
You didn't hear anything that Matt just said?
Did you not hear me just ask you which God we're talking about? Oh, you ran away. Or you hung up because you couldn't hear me. But
hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah, Julio, call back. All we wanted to know is, let's stop spinning our wheels with you asking us what would convince us that a God exists when we don't even know what God we're talking about. How can I give an answer? It's like, hey, what would convince you that I have this magic hoochie watts that's in my living room? I don't know. What is it you're talking about?
That's a good point. Yeah, it's kind of unclear what's even being said, right? Like, the human fairy exists and it just wants humans. And the evidence is all these humans.
I was screening a call, and it looks like Julio's calling back. Did we want to bring him back, or are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get Julio back, because he stopped hearing us, and I was just trying to get him to tell us what the God is.
Oh, and then he dropped again, it looks like. I'm so sorry.
If you get Julio back, that's great. If we're going to go into another call in the meantime.
Okay.
Cool. Mike is calling from Canada. Pronouns are him. Mike says, what makes you think the Bible is BS? Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, just curious, what makes you think that? I saw your title of your video.
Well, I'm going to opt out again in just a second. I'm just going to say, for clarity, I've never claimed everything in the Bible is BS. There's just a bunch of it that I don't see any good reason to believe, and some of it I see good reason to disbelieve. But Ian's answer might be better, different, more specific.
Yeah, broadly speaking, there's a lot of just direct contradictions. There's a lot of things that are frankly absurd, and I think that there are some genuinely valuable lessons, as there is in a lot of works of fiction. You'll know them by their fruits. Great lesson. Being vaguely loving and kind. That's good. That's important. These are the themes we look for in our media. But if you want a good concrete example, I don't mean to be too blunt here, but the God of the Bible is kind of a sick fuck. Let's take the story of the Amalekites, for example. There's this group in the Bible called the Amalekites. They attacked the Israelites in the Exodus. The Israelites are leaving Egypt. God has just liberated them, and they're exiting out of there, and they get attacked by the Amalekites. And God said, I'm going to wipe them off the face of the earth. I'm going to completely eliminate them. I'm going to wipe out any memory, any trace of them. But I'm not going to wipe out the ones that did the attack. No. I'm going to wait 400 years, and I'm going to attack their great grandchildren who had nothing to do with any of it. So he says, go now, attack the men, the women, the children, the infants. Do not spare them, but kill all of them. So my question with respect to this is very simple. Do you think the newborn Amalekite infants born 400 years after the crime deserve to get turned into paste with swords?
Deserve? Well, no, I don't think they deserved it, and I don't think, like, for example, most deaths or many deaths that people suffer are not about what they deserve, right? It's just people die for different ways, different reasons. But that particular story is like, it's a unique act of God's judgment in a specific historical context. It's not a general rule for human behavior. It's not as if God is expecting us to do stuff like that. So I don't see that as a real objection to the Bible in general.
But here's the problem, is that leads to a direct contradiction, because at other verses in the Bible, it's claimed that God is just in all of his ways. So if God gives a punishment, it's a just punishment. Now, you can disagree with me on this. You can tell me what you think justice is, but I take justice to be broadly something like everybody getting what they deserve. If the Amalekites didn't deserve this punishment, then the punishment was unjust. If the punishment was unjust, then God is not just in all of his ways, which means that there's a contradiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure. Where do you get that standard of justice? Like, well, what's the basis for that standard of justice?
That's just how justice is differentiated from morality, where morality is typically conceived as like the study of the categorical imperative, which is just to say like the thing that we all ought do, irregardless of goals. Justice is differentiated from this as dealing with just deserts, which is just what people deserve. So when you conceive of justice, do you disagree that it's people getting what they deserve? And maybe like a good question to ask, do you think that getting a punishment that you don't deserve is just?
No, I don't. But I don't think that's necessarily a punishment on all the Amalekites. It's like, that's not exactly what happened there. For example, when you have like a natural disaster, like an earthquake or something, that's not a punishment on those people, right? It's just something that happened.
Mike, can I ask?
Now there's a judgment on their culture, on their people group.
Mike,
and so some people, yes,
yeah. Do you think Noah's flood happened as the Bible describes it?
I'm kind of undecided on that one. Let's take it off the subject, though.
Do you at least agree that the Bible describes it as a punishment on all the earth except for the 8 people that were on the ark and the animals?
Well, there again, it's a punishment on. It's like there's like this concept in the Bible of like collective punishment, right? Where it's not like people are being punished. It's not like everything that happens in your life, unfortunate or fortunate.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you, would you agree to what the Bible says? The Bible literally says that God regretted what he had done and wanted to destroy the earth with of everyone except for Noah and his family. Now, do you think God did that intentionally?
No. Well, what he said is that he regretted that he had made man on the earth and grieved him at his heart. And then he decided that he would destroy all mankind because
except
of
for
what
one
had
family.
Happened. Like what mankind had come to.
I'm having real difficulty here because I keep asking questions, Mike, and you don't answer it. Do you agree that the Bible says that God flooded the earth intentionally to destroy everyone except for Noah and his family?
Yeah, but you were asking me that. You were asking me about
I don't need a but. I don't need a but. So yes, you agree. You don't need a but. I don't need a but. I don't need a but. Let me continue. So you agree the Bible says that. I'm sorry, would you let me fucking finish, please?
You changed the question.
I'm not changing. I'm changing the question to get to the point. Would you please let me finish? I'd really hate to put you on mute. You agree with me that the Bible claims that God destroyed everyone except for Noah's family intentionally, correct?
Yes.
Do you actually believe that the Bible is accurate in describing that God did that intentionally?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. would you consider that to be just, a just act on God's part to kill every living thing except for Noah and his family? Is that just?
Yes, because the thing is, the reason why, though, let me explain why I think so. Because justice doesn't end for God at our temporal life, right? There's an eternal life. And so he has ways to make things right or just or make people whole.
Make things right? So he wronged
right?
them?
You can't just imagine that. Excuse me?
So you would say that he wronged them by doing the flood. If you need to make someone right
No,
in order
I
for
wouldn't say
justice to
that.
be achieved, then what you're saying is that you wronged them. So you've just committed yourself to
wouldn't say
saying that
that.
God wronged these, like the people that got drowned in the flood.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that he wronged them. But what I said is that
Didn't you
the
say that he was going to
circumstances led
make
to a
them right?
situation. Pardon me?
Didn't you say that he was going to make them right?
Yeah, because the circumstances were such that some people had been wronged. I don't think God wronged them, but
Who
the
did?
situation was such that some people had lost out on certain things. Like a young child in that situation lost out on the rest of their life. But in heaven,
because of
they'll
God's
be made
flood,
whole.
correct?
Pardon
God's
me?
flood is the thing that wronged them, right? Like God, it's because of God's flood that these people got wronged.
Yeah, but again, it's like
So God wronged them.
the situation. No, but the situation is not
Okay.
such that.
No, he wronged them
can-
to give them something better, right?
I didn't say he wronged them. I said that the flood
Okay,
situation.
you're saying it
was
wasn't
his-
wrong. You're saying it wasn't wrong for God to kill all of them because he gave them something better.
No, because God decides our life and our death, all of our lives and deaths. I think that as the maker of everything, he decides that.
So,
That's his-
so
that's his-
does that mean
that's
that
his
God is
prerogative.
above justice? That God, everything God does is just no matter what?
No, I didn't say that. I said though that I don't ascribe to your version of justice though. Like the way you guys.
I'm literally see. Here's the
rule of
thing that's
justice.
really, really, really annoying. I'm literally asking you to tell us what you think is just and why. And when you came closest to it, you said that you thought it was just because there's an afterlife. And then when I said, so you say it's okay for God to kill them because he gave them something better, you said, no, I'm not saying that. Then when I suggested that it was just for God to do it, because everything God does is just, you said no to that. I'm still trying to figure out what you think justice is. Because if I killed every person on the planet, would that be just?
No, but you wouldn't. You're
No.
in a different moral.
So why is it? Why would it be unjust for me to do it, but just for God to do it?
Because people are given different moral. They have different moral status. Like for example, in our society, a judge has a different moral status than a regular citizen.
No,
They're
it
able to
absolutely
make certain
doesn't.
rules
No, the judge absolutely doesn't. That's not how justice works. That's not how rights work. All men are endowed by their creator with certain. I'm sorry. I'm still talking. I'm still talking, Mike. But in the United States, I know you're Canadian.
You interrupted me.
I'm still talking, Mike. Why is that so difficult? Here, I'm just going to mute you. In the United States, I know you're Canadian, so I'll speak slowly. One of the foundational principles is that all men are endowed with their creator by certain inalienable rights, and that the judge is not at a different standard than the people he's judging. I asked you why it would be wrong for me to do it and not for God to do it. And your answer, which was very simple, is that there's a different standard for God, which is what I was asking about before when you said no to that. So it seems like you're incredibly confused here about what justice even is or what justice would mean. Is there anything, like, for example, the Bible says that God regretted that he made man. Does that mean God thought he made a mistake? I'm gonna unmute you. Does that regret mean that God thought he made a mistake?
Well, wait. What are you asking me about? Are you asking me about justice, or are you asking me about whether God made a mistake? It's like you're changing all these. Keep changing the topic.
Yeah,
let's just calm down.
I'm sorry that it's difficult for you to follow, but the last question that I asked you.
No, you're interrupting me.
Yes, because it's my show and because you're refusing to answer the question we've asked you 3 or 4 fucking times now. So let's try this again. I'm moving on from justice because I don't think you are able to comprehend justice or give any sort of answer because you've been all over the map. So I'm asking a different question now, which is, when the Bible says that God regretted that he had made man, do you think that's an admission that God thinks he made a mistake?
No, I don't. And also, like, for example, you mischaracterized what I said about justice as well. I didn't say God has a different standard. I said different people have different status, different moral status. That is, the judge in a human society is able to pronounce like sentences in a court, whereas the regular citizen is not.
Not because the judge has the status, it's because the judge is dispensing the law. The law is the same for all. The law applies to the judge as well as the law applies. The law applies to the judge as well as those being judged.
Of course.
Why are you? Why are you? Mike, why are you trying to talk over me?
You never. Me. I'm not done finished.
Mike, I don't give a shit if you're done talking. Whoa, you are never ever. I'm going to stop in a minute and let Ian go with you because Ian is more patient with this stuff than I am. You are never, ever, 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 ever going to be able to talk over me on my own show. Ever. And the only time this happens, the only time I put somebody on mute is when they repeatedly demonstrate dishonesty, when we have to keep asking the same question over and over again. And their weak ass just meanders around and comes up with excuses. I'm sorry that we are asking the difficult questions that expose not only the fact that you don't know what you're talking about with regard to the Bible or justice or morality or ethics or the law or reason. I'm sorry that's difficult for you, genuinely. It was difficult for me when I used to believe the bullshit you believe. But the fact of the matter is, all we're trying to do is get to a point where either you can recognize that you are already busted in multiple contradictions and don't have anything to stand on, or you can explain what Ian and I have overlooked and why it would be justified and rational for us to believe what you believe. You can either do that or you can't. I hope that you can, because if I'm wrong about a God, I'd like to know. I'm assuming Ian would like to know if he's wrong too.
Of course.
But they're going to talk to you now so that you don't have to complain about me anymore. So don't complain about me. I'm done. Ian will be here and they'll talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can I finish what I was saying before?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, what did you want to say?
Okay, so my point was this, that different people have, I'm not saying God has a different moral standard. I'm saying he has the same moral standard, which comes from his nature. I'm sure you've heard this argument before. What I'm saying is that different people, even in our society, different people have different moral roles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so within the moral system that we're all under, there are different people have different roles. And so, for example, a judge would have the role of assigning people punishment for breaking the law. Regular citizens do not. A teacher in the classroom has the role of punishing kids for being out of order, and regular kids do not. And so God's role is different than ours. So that's why he's able to judge the entire world.
Let's say a newborn infant was caught stealing maple syrup, and then the prosecutor and the judge decided to drown him. Would that be just,
No, that wouldn't. But again, that's a different situation.
Was it unjust when God did it?
Power. Hold on a sec. We're talking about the different roles people have in a moral system.
Mm-hmm.
In an objective moral system, different people will have different roles, different persons.
In an objective moral system, it's relative.
Pardon me?
In an objective moral system, it's relative, is what I'm hearing.
No, what I'm saying is, no, I'm not saying it's relative. I'm saying that it's subjective, but there's different roles. And God's role is different than the role of a human. So while the judge would have to would have to stay to the laws of the land, God's laws are different, also the position he's in, we're able to grant eternal life, able to judge people to eternal damnation, etc.
Do you think
his position is totally different than ours?
Do you think it's ever just to give a newborn the death penalty?
No.
So it wasn't just when God gave newborns the death penalty?
That's not a death penalty. He's not penalizing
What do you take the
them for
death
something they
penalty to
did.
be?
Pardon?
Well, yeah, he's punishing them for something they didn't do. Yeah, that's why it's so fucked up.
No, he's not punishing them. He's not punishing them. The thing is, everybody.
He literally
everybody
says in the
lives and
flood that
dies.
it's a punishment. What was the point of the flood if not to punish?
No, it's to punish. No, it's not. It's not all to punish. It wasn't. It was the fact that he regretted making man at all, and so
Okay.
mankind.
I'm sorry, Ian. I have to do this.
That's okay.
I will come back. I muted him
understand.
for just a second. I want to pull him right back. I just wanted to say that the entire Garden of Eden story, the fact that humans die at all, was a punishment for disobedience. So that plays right into what you're talking about.
True.
So you don't even have to
really
go to the
good
flood.
point.
You go back a step.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah. The fact that humans are able to die is a punishment, which means that when God kills all of these babies in the flood, that's a part of the punishment. Do they deserve the death
No,
penalty?
it's not. No, it's not a punishment. That's not in the text of the story. It's actually
Is
a
death a
blessing.
punishment?
The fact that you don't live forever. The fact that you don't live forever in this world of sin and death, of sin and
Prior to the fall of
suffering.
man, could Adam and Eve be drowned?
Yeah. Why not? Doesn't say
Because
that they
death
were
didn't
immortal.
exist. You haven't even read. Oh, you don't understand the text. Oh.
No, I do. No, you don't understand.
boy.
It doesn't say that they're immortal. It doesn't say. Actually, it says when you read it in Genesis 3, it says that lest he eat from the tree of life and live forever. So it's not as if he was going to live forever without eating from the tree of life. So it's not true that they were just immortal until they sinned. That's just a myth. It's not in the text.
Okay, let me pull up Genesis. What is it? Genesis 3? Doesn't it tell explicitly that death enters the world?
Well, it actually says that on
Where
the
does it
day
say
you
that? It
eat
doesn't
it,
say
you
that
shall
at all.
surely die. But I'm sorry, I'm talking right
Yeah,
now.
did
So
they die? No,
I'm
they
sorry.
did.
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm talking right now, which means you're not talking. So what it says is, on the day you eat it, you shall surely die. But on the day they ate it, they didn't die, which means that since they didn't physically die, theists had to come up with some other way that they died. Well, then they spiritually died, or their opportunity for physically living forever died. So they had to post hoc rationalize what it meant by death. And so now Mike is saying, it never said they were going to live forever here, but they could have if they had eaten the from the tree of life. But it also didn't say that they were going to live forever outside of here. But if they were going to live for outside of here, then the question I would have is, in what way did they die on the day that they ate the fruit? And that way is absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Yeah, Mike, in what way did they die?
Well, they died. The thing is, in the Bible, death is not. I don't know what you guys think death is in the Bible, but death is like separation from God, separation from life. Or, for example, separation from the body is when the body.
So
when
you
the body
think going to heaven
spirit-
is separation from God?
Sorry?
So going to heaven, dying and going to heaven is separation from God?
No, that's not death, though. That's eternal life.
So
But
when you
death
die and go to
and
heaven,
death-
that's not death?
That's physical death, but that's not. If you're separated,
Okay, sure,
so
of
when your
course.
body
Yeah, well,
is-
if you're just equivocating
Hold on,
on the
hold on.
words, then sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, I'm not.
I'm not equivocating on the
It's
words,
physical death.
I'm just using death, the way that everybody else uses death, I'm using it in like this complete niche idiosyncratic way, but I'm not equivocating or anything.
No, in the Bible, we can see there's a clear understanding of death. There's two types of death. There's a physical death and a spiritual death. James 2 talks about it. The spiritual death is when the spirit is separated from the body. When the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Okay, James 2:26. So that's the spiritual death, the physical death. But then there's a second death, as it says in Revelation 20, that the second death is being cast into the lake of fire. And the others, those who are not cast into the lake of fire, those that believed in Jesus, are going to have eternal life. They do not have death.
Okay, sure. So we have two types of death, spiritual death and being cast into the lake of fire. Which one came on Adam and Eve when they ate from the tree?
They had the original death, which is like at that time before they ate from the tree, right? They had like communion with God. which is life. God is life, right? Then they had a separation from God.
What changed?
Because they ate of the tree.
What
when they
changed?
ate of the tree, when they sinned, that means that they had the separation from God.
Yeah,
That
but
led
what
to their
changed?
death in that sense.
I understand they're in this new
They had
category now, but what changed?
It changes the separation from God.
I understand that they're in a different category now, but what does that actually mean? What's the actual change there?
A separation from God. You're no longer able to have communion with God.
Maybe I'm just like asking the question badly. I understand that they're spiritually dead, separated from God. What does that mean?
It means that they will now live in this fallen world of sin and death, and they will eventually pass away and die. If they remain in the garden,
they couldn't die
as
before.
It says in James 3. Sorry, can
you just said what changed is that they now live in a world with death. So death wasn't in the world before.
Yeah, but that's what. Yeah, well, what's the problem with that?
Sure. Okay, cool. So then, to be clear, death is a punishment.
No, because they didn't die that moment. It's not like death is the punishment. The punishment is being separated from God, as I was saying.
Yeah, which entails actual death. Yes.
Pardon?
Which means like actual death. That includes like actual death, right?
Eventually.
The death that they died was spiritual death, which means that they now live in a fallen world wherein death exists.
Yeah, that's part of their judgment, yes.
So part of the punishment is that people can die now, like physically die now.
Okay.
Oh my, okay, we made it. We okay, I'm not even mad. We made it. Okay. So then so it's a part of the punishment when kids are able to drown and die a physical death. That's part of the punishment.
Oh, is that what you're saying? Oh, that's what you're saying, right? Oh, the death is a part of the punishment. Okay. Now, what I was saying to you is that death is a blessing, because having to live forever in this life of suffering and toil would be hell. So
do you think when like a kid dies of cancer, do you think that that's a blessing? Is it a blessing when a kid dies of cancer?
But just not having to live
Was
forever.
the Holocaust a blessing?
And again, no, but the fact that the fact that the unevenness of life and the fact that things suffer and stuff, that's due to the fact that God created this world as having like certain like stable rules and laws. And so having that kind of world requires that there's going to be these kind of consequences. Yeah. Some people are going to die young. Some people are going to suffer.
All right. So we have a contradiction on our hands. You're saying that death is a blessing, but it was given as a punishment. So God gave a good thing as a punishment.
No. I didn't say.
You said death is a blessing, and also that this is like physical death as a result of the fall of man, and it's like part of the punishment. It's part of the fallen world. You've contradicted yourself.
Mike, when you're having your own words quoted back to you, do you think that saying hold on makes it not happen?
No, you guys are mixing up what I'm saying. You're not properly.
Mike, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you a question that you're probably going to find offensive, and I'm sorry, but I'm not alone. Do you have a speech impediment, or are you drunk?
No. I've always asked that. No, I'm neither of those things. I don't have a speech impediment. I'm not drunk. But this is the thing. You guys keep like you're mischaracterizing what I'm saying. You're not like being fair with what I'm trying to say here.
Okay. Let me ask a different question that relates to all of this that might make this clear. So in the garden, the serpent came and convinced Eve to eat from the tree of what?
Knowledge of good and evil?
Yes. And God had told them not to eat from that tree, correct?
Yes.
They ate from that tree, correct?
Yes.
And they didn't die, but God decided to punish them, correct? Or maybe they spiritually died, but God decided to punish them, correct?
They were judged, yes.
Yes. Is it just to judge someone and determine that they have done wrong when they could not have known the difference between right and wrong?
Well, that's like, the thing is, the fact that the tree is
I'm sorry, that was a yes or no question, Mike. That was a yes or no question, Mike. Would it be just to judge someone that they did
No, it
something
wouldn't.
wrong if they had no capacity to know right from wrong?
No, it wouldn't. But the tree of
Okay,
knowledge of good and
so
evil
I'm
doesn't
sorry. When
imply
I
that
say
they
it's a
didn't
yes or no
know.
question, when I say it's a yes or no
Yeah,
question
well,
and you
I know
give
where
me
you're
the
going
no,
with it. I
that
know where
means
you're
it's
going
my
with it,
turn to ask the
obviously.
I'm sorry that you don't understand how this shit works. It's really easy. When I ask a yes or no question and say it's a yes or no question, you give me a yes or no, and then I ask the follow-up. And the follow-up is where you're going to get to expound. So they didn't know right from wrong. They ate from the tree that taught them right from wrong, and yet God punished them for something that they could not have known was wrong. What makes that just?
Okay, as I was going to say, the tree is called that.
Okay, I'm going to mute you and we're going to teach you one quick lesson and then we're going to try again and I'm going to back off and let you do this. I don't need your smug, passive aggressive, well, as I was going to say. I literally gave you a yes or no question and then I followed it up with an open-ended question. I specifically asked you to expound on it. When you do something like, well, as I was going to say, do you know how absolutely like a prick you look for doing that when all we're trying to do is to get you to focus on the questions that we're asking? I mean, this was really easy. My view is, how can you punish someone if they don't know right from wrong? If you're going to punish them for disobeying and they didn't know that it was wrong to disobey, then you are unjust. If they did know it was wrong to disobey, then clearly they had knowledge of the difference between right and wrong. That was my question. And all I needed was for you to just go ahead and expound on it. But instead, you had to do this little, well, as I was going to say, and that prompted this sermon. This probably didn't feel good. It was a waste of my time. It was a waste of Ian's time. It was a waste of all the callers on hold's time for me to have to teach you how to have a basic conversation. Please don't make me do it again. Please explain why it's okay for God to punish people for not knowing right from wrong. I'll unmute you now.
Okay, so he's not punishing them for that. They did know right from wrong. The tree is not really regarding that. It's more regarding like what it really means to live in a world of good and evil where they don't live yet. But they did know that God's command was do not eat, and they knew that they should not disobey God. They already knew that much, and that was enough to know that they shouldn't do that.
Okay. Why did they know that they were supposed to obey God? What reason did they have to obey God?
What reason do they have to obey God? Well, he's their maker. He's their creator. He gives them
Do you think
everything
somebody
that they
making
have.
you means that they can just like always tell you what to do? Like if your mom told you to rob a bank, would that mean that you have like a reason to rob a bank?
No, but it does give a good reason to think that he might know more about what's right and wrong than you do.
Okay, but then
And
you
of
agree that
course,
just because somebody makes you does not in any way give a reason to listen to them.
no, well, this is not just your mom and dad. This is God. It's a little bit different. It's not about your parents are different than the God of the universe who created everything, you know? The idea that Adam was
It
sitting
runs
there
into
with someone
the
who
is
created the
ought
entire universe.
problem. Why does God
Pardon?
commanding something mean that anyone ever has a reason to do it?
Well, if
Like, what if I don't give a
God
fuck
is
what
the
God
ground of all
says? What
being,
then?
pardon me?
What if I don't give a fuck what God says? What then?
Well, that's not the question. The question is there right and wrong? And does he know
Well, in
it?
order for
And
there
is
to
he
be
the
right and
one that
wrong, there would
guides
need
you?
to be a reason for me to do it. So what's the reason that I have to do it? Let's say I don't give a fuck about what God tells me to do. Do I have any
Right,
reason
I
at
know, but
all?
we're talking about just moral right and wrong, right? Is there a
Yeah.
moral right and wrong?
So right
So
and
my
wrong are what's
suggestion to
called
you is
normative, which means that you have a reason to do them. If there's no reason, then they're not normative. And if they're not normative, then it's not ethics. So let's say I don't give
no,
a fuck what God tells me to do. Do I have any reason at all to listen to what he tells me to do?
normative doesn't mean there's a reason. It means that there's like this is
Oh
right
my
and this is wrong.
God.
So
Oh no, that's not
if there's
true
a
because
moral,
there are non-ethical normative reasons. For example, like you could be playing chess and you'd have a normative reason. If what you want to do is win the chess game, you'd have a normative reason to move your rook to the back rank. This is like common definitions,
No,
I
not
fear.
really. Well, we're talking
Literally, just
about
look it up.
moral normative. We're talking about moral norms, obviously, in this discussion right now. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about rules of chess.
We're
So
talking
in the
about
moral
normativity.
universe,
Normativity just means
pardon me?
reasons to do something. That's all normativity means. You know, it's like normative versus descriptive. Descriptive tells you like what is, and normative tells you what you should do, the reasons that you have to do specific things.
Okay, so what we're
That's why
talking
you
about
should
is
say
moral
you
norms,
should do
all right?
this in the chess game, but you also say you shouldn't murder, for example. They're both normative. Okay, what
No, but one
do you
is moral norm.
disagree that everyone needs to have a reason to do what God tells them to do?
Yes, and in terms of moral norms,
Okay,
there are
then
reasons to
your
believe
ethics
what
aren't
God-
normative.
Ethics aren't normative? What are you talking about?
I take should to mean like you have a reason to do it. Do you disagree that should and ought means you have some reason to do the thing? So if
Yeah,
you're saying that
morality is
people
a
don't have
reason to do
reasons to
things.
listen to God, then you can't say that they ought listen to God, because ought means reasons for action, and you're conceding that some people don't have reasons to listen to God. You've conceded
I'm not going to
like the core feature of ethics, which is that they tell you what you should do.
Yeah, that's what morality is. Moral norms tell you what you should do,
Mhm.
and they give you a reason to do it, which is being morally right.
That's
That's
circular.
a reason.
If the reason that I
No,
have
it
to listen
isn't.
to God is because you're just stipulating that it's right, that's circular. That's the very thing in
No,
contest.
I didn't stipulate that. I didn't stipulate that. I'm just explaining that moral norms are a reason to do things. You're trying to deny that. And now I'm going now that we
The fuck? That's
established
my
that,
position.
moral norms.
He did a switcheroo.
Excuse me. You just said to me that moral norms are not ethics are not a reason to do things.
What?
So I'm
No,
telling you that
the
they
opposite.
are, and then I'm saying, what?
Do you think that the audience is as confused as you are? I spent such a long time explaining to you that ethics are normative, meaning that they give you a reason to do things. That the intrinsic feature of ethics is that they're reason giving, one of the features of them, because they're normative.
Oh, is that what you said? Okay, I guess I misheard you. I apologize.
That's okay.
So if we're
It's okay. We all make mistakes,
moral norms.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna
so
I'm gonna
let's say-
redirect this, Mike, because we've been at this for like 35
Wait.
minutes, and hang on, listen to me. I'm talking. I'm gonna redirect because we've been at this for 35 minutes, and there are other people on hold. You called in to ask us what makes us think that the Bible is bullshit. We pointed out things about the Bible that are inconsistent with, I don't know, the facts of reality, that are inconsistent with morality. And you have just said basically nuh-uh to everything, that God is in a different category with regard to morality and everything else. So let's do this. I don't think the Genesis story ever happened. I don't think that there's a God. I don't think that God created anything. I don't think there was an Adam and Eve. I don't think that they were told not to eat of the fruit. I don't think that there was a serpent that spoke to them and tried to convince them. I don't think that the serpent was cursed to crawl in its belly and lose its legs, despite the fact that I'm a snake breeder who works with 21 species of snakes, and I can show you the residual legs. I think that is a just so story that was designed to explain that particular feature in all of the snakes that are behind me in the other room. What reason do you have to think that that story actually happened?
What reason do I have?
No, that's not what I
that
said.
Jesus-
I'm sorry, Ian, just for clarity, did I ask what reason do you have, or did I ask what reason do you have that we should believe?
Yeah, the reason that we should believe.
Yeah, I'm looking for the reason that you think we should believe that story is true.
Like evidence, for example.
What do you mean false in what sense? What do you mean it's false? Like, do you mean it's historically false, scientifically
I'm sorry,
false,
Mike, listen to me very closely, because I've been incredibly calm, and the people who watch this show regularly know that I'm about to lose my shit. I didn't say the word false once during that. I asked you, what reason can you present that you think we should believe that the story is true? I do not believe that it's true. But that is not the same as believing it's false. I can be unconvinced of its truth and also unconvinced that it is false. The burden of proof is on you because you believe the story is true. So I'm asking you to present the reason that we should believe it's true. Is that clear?
Okay, got it. Okay, so the reason why you should believe Genesis is true is the same reason I believe it, which is that Genesis gives the best metaphysical and moral explanation of the human condition. Why humans have dignity, why the world is ordered in the way it is, yet still broken. Why evil exists, and why there's this violation of the order of God's order, and why death is an enemy rather than just this thing that happens to us. That's
Mike,
why
can I
you
ask
should
you a
believe
question?
in Genesis.
How would you explain the fact? So you would say, like, for example, the reason why people get cancer is because of the fall of man.
Yes.
How would you explain the fact that dinosaurs had cancer millions of years before humans even existed? We literally have a dinosaur bone. It's a relative of Triceratops. The bone has bone cancer on it. We literally have a dinosaur bone with a bone tumor on it. How could you possibly explain that?
Well, I don't necessarily accept the claim that dinosaurs existed before humans, so there's that.
Oh,
But even if
boy.
we do take that view,
How old is the Earth, Mike?
we may think of it. I'm not sure, but even if we wait.
Do you think the Earth is closer to 6 to 10,000 years, or closer to billions of years?
I'm not sure. I'm at the stage in my life right now where I'm either going to go young Earth or old Earth. But I would say that
I'm
Those
sorry.
are the two options, yes.
Hold on. You asked me about the.
No, I'm not asking you about anything, and I'm not holding on. You just said you're at that stage of your life where you're either going to go young Earth or old Earth. I realize that there's another option in day age. But at this point, Mike, not only have you made an exhaustive list of shit that you don't know anything about, but you don't believe that dinosaurs predate humans, despite all of the scientific evidence that that is in fact the case. You do not know whether the Earth is closer to 6,000 years than it is to billions of years, and yet you want us to hold on and continue listening to you. So my final question for you is the same question that I asked of a previous caller. Why on earth should I listen to someone who is openly, obviously irrational and does not care whether they're irrational?
It's not why should you think that I'm openly or irrational? What have I?
You don't think the dinosaurs existed prior to humans?
Denying certain scientific claims doesn't make me irrational.
Denying the entire field of paleontology does.
No, it doesn't.
Do you think that the paleontologists are just out there jerking their gherkin? What the fuck do you think they're doing all day? Could you even name like 5 dinosaurs?
What does that have to do with anything?
You're denying an entire field that you know nothing about.
I'll tell you exactly what it has to do with something. You are really good at denying things. No, I'm still talking.
Hold on
you say hold on one more time, I dare you. You are denying scientific facts while acknowledging that you do not understand them at all. Do you have some evidence that the bulk of paleontology and the bulk of fossils and scientific dating methods are wrong? Or do you just not understand them and accept them?
No, I understand them. I'm just saying that there's possibilities that they might be wrong. The thing is, it's an abductive argument, right? They're not able to. Hold on
Mike,
a second. I'm going to explain my
argument. No, I fucking dared you to tell me to hold on one more time. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now, Mike. And we're going to go on to some callers that don't pull some bullshit like that. Okay?
It's an abductive argument is so funny to me. The best explanation for all the dinosaur bones is that they're fake.
Yeah. Science, by the way, is inductive, not abductive. And your abductive argument suggested it's possible that it's wrong. I didn't ask you if it was possible that it's wrong. I asked you if you had reason to think that it was in fact wrong, because you are throwing out the entirety of scientific findings relevant to the dating of Earth, the dating of fossils, the dating of the history of life on this planet. And when given an opportunity to present your reason for it, you said it's possible it's wrong. Goodbye, Mike. Call back another time when you have a basic understanding of how to make an argument for your positions, because that's irrational. You do not know what you're talking about, and you are willfully irrational. And I don't care to listen to you further today, but some other day I might. So thanks for calling. Do better next time. We have a couple of TS callers left, and one spiritual caller that's been on hold for a long time. Oh my gosh, she just hung up.
Oh no.
She was on hold for 1 hour and 50 minutes, and I was literally going to take her call next, even though she's technically not a theist. Wow, I feel bad. Sorry, Christy. If you want to call back, I'll try and get to you. But let's take the next theist, and that's Mark from Indiana. Pronouns are he, him. Says, do you reject the God of the Bible or God as a whole? I reject every God I've been presented with. I see no reason to accept any of them.
So you reject the existence of God as a whole?
I do not accept the existence of any God. Yes.
So you are an atheist, basically.
Yes. I run a channel called Atheist Debates. I posted a show called Atheist Experience. I'm on the board of directors for the American Atheists. I get it. Yeah, this is probably your first time running across me. That's fine. But if you search for Atheist Debate, you find me.
Yeah, I know that. Okay. So when you say that there is no God, you are basically...
That's not what I said. That's not what I said, Mark. That's not what I said.
What do you say, please? Come again?
I said I do not accept any God claims. That is not the same as saying there is no God.
Mark, if you'd like to present us with a God that you think is possible and we can discuss it, maybe that would be fruitful.
See, when you say that, let me pose my question. Do you only reject the Bible to be the word of the God? Or do you, my question was this, do you reject Bible to be the word of God or the existence of God as a whole?
I answered your question when you first called. I do not accept any God claims currently.
But you believe in God, the existence of an ultimate creator.
I do not believe any God claims are rational to believe.
This guy's like a mind reader.
So
he's insisting, yes, you do believe.
What is your evidence for that?
I don't need evidence to say that no one has met their burden of proof for a God. Are you able to present and make a burden of proof for a God claim?
Okay, so the burden of proof is on the one who makes a claim. The theist claims that there is a God. Of course, I know that the burden of proof is on a theist, but similarly, an atheist says that there is no God. He's also making a claim.
I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry, Mark. Mark, I'm sorry, but I just told you I did not make that claim. You don't get to saddle me with a claim just so you can shift the burden of proof. So you need to talk about whatever God you're going to present. I'm sorry, I don't know why you're trying to talk over me. It's never, ever, 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 ever going to fucking work. So you don't get to pretend that I made a claim I didn't make and try to saddle me with a burden of proof. But since you don't like talking to me fairly, I'll let you just talk to Ian, because maybe you'll be fairer with him.
Okay. When you say God, Mark, what do you mean?
By God, we mean to say the ultimate creator who was there before time and space and everything existed. But my question from the previous gentleman was, who got hyped up, who could not answer my question is, let me ask you that, when you are saying that you do not believe in God, no God exists, you are also making a claim, but you are making a negative claim. I'm making a positive claim.
Whoa, Mark, can I ask you a question? Do you think that timeless things change?
I'm sorry, I'll have to unmute him because he literally lied and said that he asked me a question I couldn't answer. I answered it repeatedly. So let's try again, Mark. If you're going to talk to Ian and Ian's going to treat you fairly, You should keep my name out of your fucking mouth right now.
You gotta keep his name out of the Mr. Microphone that you're apparently talking into.
Well, I think that his age should teach him that he should not use such kind of words, man. What is this fucking and all that shit, man? If you cannot,
fuck
if you do
yourself.
not have the knowledge to debate someone,
You don't get
why
to
are
tell
you
me
just
what
fucking
fucking
around,
language to use. Did you just call in to see if you can rile me up? Because it's not going to work. I've already written you off as a clown, and now you're talking about what language. Take the opportunity, if you're sincere and want to talk about atheism, if you're sincere and want to talk about God, if you're sincere, you should take this opportunity to talk to Ian, because you're not getting an opportunity to talk to me. You already blew that.
Yeah, Mark, let's just have a discussion. Maybe you could stop dodging the question and answer it. You've dodged like 2 of my questions now. The question's very simple. Do you think a timeless thing can change?
I believe that the time itself is a creation of God Almighty. We believe in a God who is the necessity
What
being.
question
Who
do you think
was
I just
there
asked
before all
you?
the
Because that didn't
people
answer it.
Sorry, what?
What do you think my question was?
Can you please rephrase your questions in other words?
Okay, I'll
I did
ask
not
the
get what you are
question a
saying, man.
third time. Please try to listen to the question. It's genuinely a yes or no question. Do you think timeless things can change?
Timeless things can change.
Yep, can they?
There is only one being who is outside time, and that is God. He can exist, yes.
Do you think that answers my question? What do you think my question was? Do I need to ask
You
it like a
said that
fourth time, really?
timeless things exist.
Holy shit, it's literally like a yes or no question, and I have to ask it 4 times. I didn't ask if timeless things exist. That's not the question. Can a timeless thing change? It's like 5 words.
So, how do I know, man?
I'm asking you, do you believe that it can?
I have never. I do not know that. I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay, well, if it could change, then it would be contradictory insofar as it would have 2 opposite properties. You know, the reason why, for example,
bro.
I was drinking water earlier, but I'm currently not.
Yeah.
The reason why there isn't a contradiction there is because it's 2 different moments of time. Time allows me to inhabit different properties at different moments without contradiction. If you have a timeless being, then presumably he can't change. Otherwise, you have a contradiction.
Bro, what has time got to do with the main argument, man? Time itself is a creation. But the main thing is, let me ask you a genuine question, the basic
Okay,
question.
yeah,
Do
after
you
you dodged
believe in
my
a God?
question 4
Yes
times in
or
a row,
no?
yeah. Yeah, I'm really keen to answer your questions after you dodge my question, yeah.
Do you believe in a God? Yes or no?
Oh boy. Do you want like, I guess this could be like a good example for you about what it looks like to answer a question. No.
The main thing is, okay, you are saying that no God exists. You are
I'm saying
making
I
a
don't
claim
believe in
here,
one.
but
That
that is a
doesn't
negative claim,
follow.
and you also have got to prove.
Sorry, that just doesn't follow. It doesn't follow from I don't believe a thing that none of these things could possibly exist. That just doesn't follow.
If I say, if I make a claim, if I say that something does not exist, that means that I'm making
I
a
guess I'll
claim.
just
I'm
run
saying
like
that
Russell's
I know
teapot
that
on
this
you.
thing does not exist.
Do you believe that there's a teapot
what?
floating through outer space 1,000,000 light years away?
Can you please come again? I did not hear, man.
Yeah. Do you believe that there's a teapot floating through outer space 1,000,000 light years away?
If I say I do not know, then I am on an agnostic
You don't know
side.
if you
And
believe it? I'm just
there's
asking
no
if you
burden
believe
of
in
proof.
it.
There is no burden of proof.
I'm just asking if you believe that
There
one
is no
exists.
burden.
Either you believe in it or you don't. Which one is it?
If okay, so if I say yes or if I say no, in both the cases I have to prove the claim that I am making. But if I say I do not know, then there is no like logic behind asking me prove it. Do you get what I'm saying?
But the reason why that's really stupid is because the question isn't, is there one that exists? The question is, do you believe in one? That's the distinction. Either you do believe it or you don't believe it. If you tell me that you don't know whether or not you believe that there's a teapot floating through outer space a million miles away, it makes you look like a fucking liar. Of course you don't believe in that.
Hey, bro. If let me phrase it this way. If I say, I know for sure that Trump is not the president of America, I'm making a claim and I have to prove it. Okay, I've got to prove the claim that I'm making. When you come with confidence, with full knowledge in front of thousands of people, and you say that there is no God, then you also have to prove like a theist.
Damn.
Because you are an atheist.
I bet this shit is tough in theist circles. Unfortunately, I never claimed that.
Let's just have a conversation over the top of him, because he's saying the same thing over and over again. He's got a little script. Maybe it's the only script that he's got that he can actually present, because instead of actually listening to what was said or what we actually said, he's got to straw man us repeatedly, and his straw man gets stronger. It goes from, if you say there's no God, to if you say you're absolutely certain that there's no God in front of everybody, then blah, 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 blah. He doesn't understand the difference between belief and knowledge. He doesn't understand why we have propositional logic to evaluate a proposition and not a question. We're not saying, are you someone who believes in God or believes there's no God? We're just saying, are you convinced that God is real? I'm not convinced that God is real. That's it. And there is no burden of proof for not being convinced. I'm sorry, you'll never be able to talk over me, Mark. There is no burden of proof for saying I am not convinced. I have no way to prove to you that I'm not convinced, but I'm not making a claim about either one. The person who says I'm convinced that God exists, whether they claim to know it, whether they claim to be absolutely certain, doesn't matter. If in fact they accept the proposition some God exists, they have adopted a positive claim, and they then have the burden of proof. Are you able, Mark, to present the evidence to meet the burden of proof for the God that you believe is real, yes or no?
Okay, so I've got thousands of evidences. I've got hundreds and thousands of evidences.
I'm really confused, Mark. I'm really confused, Mark, because first of all, I just asked you a yes or no question, and you came back by saying you had thousands of evidences. Can you just give us the one best evidence so that you don't waste more of my fucking time? Because you spent a whole bunch of time mischaracterizing my position. Then when I handed you over to Ian, you spent time mischaracterizing Ian's position too. So at this point, we no longer think that you are remotely an honest interlocutor. So to prove to us that you are in fact, listen to me, to prove to us that you are in fact honest and sincere of this, when I stop talking, I would like for you to present the one best evidence that you have to start with. If it's good, we'll keep going. But the one best evidence you have for why we should believe that the God you believe in is real. Go.
When you ask for evidences from a theist, he has hundreds and thousands of evidences, and he does not shy from.
Goodbye.
So many evidences, he can't even pick one.
even it's so sad.
Couldn't even muster up a look at the trees or something, couldn't even straw man the position, couldn't even be like, well, something can't come from nothing, dumb fucking atheist, you know.
I would have loved it. I mean, I get that there are people who are confused, who don't understand, belief and knowledge. They don't, I'm getting ready to do a video on this subject because I watched, this is going to be another one of me kind of mildly reacting to a video, and I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. But as I was scrolling through YouTube, there was a video that popped up just the other day, and it had a pyramid of belief that started with anti-theist and then went atheist, and then boom, and led up to agnostic atheist and pure agnostic, and leads all the way up to believer. And the language that's used in there is absolute crap, because and the agnostic theist is the one that's honest enough to admit that we don't know everything. Oh, so are all the ones below it potentially as well. But it also misrepresents the nature of belief. For me, just for clarity.
Yeah, unlike the anti-theist who says, yeah, I know everything.
Yeah. But for me, knowledge is a subset of belief. In philosophical circles, it's often defined as justified true belief. I think that there are big problems with that particular definition, but I understand it, and I'm happy to work with it for the people who do. I think that what we mean colloquially when we say we know something, when we talk about knowledge in that sense, what we're expressing is a confidence level that I am so convinced in this belief that it would be worldview altering to discover I'm wrong. That's what I use for knowledge, but I'll go with others. When I say belief is the state of being convinced that a proposition is likely true. That's it. And you can be convinced for good reasons or bad reasons. And if you're not convinced, here's the prime example I've used over and over again. The number of blades of grass on the planet is either even or odd. We know that for a fact. It has to be one of those two. And if I say I'm not convinced that the number of blades of grass is even, that does not mean I am convinced it's odd. I might be, I might not be. You have to ask the right question. This is what propositional logic is about. A proposition is presented rather than a question or a dilemma. Like, is there a God is not a proposition, because is there a God has a yes or no or I don't know answer. But there is a God is a proposition that you can either accept or reject. I'm not aware of anything you can do either than accept or reject, because those are direct logical negations, which for a proposition is all you have. We don't need to get into multivalent logic and all that, because clearly the callers didn't even understand what that is so far.
Yep. Gosh, yeah.
It's just, well, if you're saying you're absolutely certain there's no God, okay. I next time I think I might play along and say, okay, for the sake of argument, let's say that I am absolutely certain that there is no God. Is your entire response to that going to be prove it? Because I'm not going to necessarily be able to do that. I can make an attempt. But if I fail to prove that my position that I'm absolutely certain there is no God, if I fail to prove that, does that get us any closer to your position that it's rational to believe there is a God? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
Just like all the people who are like, oh, the Phil bros that'd be calling and blah, 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 which premise do you reject? Even if you presented something that I'm completely clueless and stupid and wrong about, you haven't moved us 1 centimeter closer to proving your God's real.
Yeah. I think it's very funny to me that they'll jump like panthers on, if you said, I'm absolutely certain that there is no God, they'll jump on prove it. But then if you ask them the same thing, I have thousands of evidences. Don't even ask me for a single one of them, because I have thousands of evidences. They want you to prove it, even though they're taking an affirmative stance of this thing existing, and they don't want to prove that, and they can't prove it, apparently.
So we have 2 theists on hold, one in the US and one in Canada. They're literally both saying the same thing, which is something another caller said. Oh, I see why. Now I understand why. The prompt that Arden put on today's thing is the Bible is BS, which is different from the prompt that I thought we were going to put on it. And that explains why they're doing that. So yes, that's awesome. All right, here we go.
Hello.
DB is calling from Canada. Pronouns are he, him. DB is a theist who says the Bible is not BS. DB, welcome to the Ian Show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here, guys.
Yeah. Great to have you here. Is there some reason why you think that the Bible is true?
Yeah, I think it comports with life in general and the state of man and so forth. And
wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind getting off speakerphone?
Yeah. Let me see. Sorry about that. Getting better?
No problem. Yeah, I think so. If it's not, I'll tell you in a second. Sorry. Yeah. So the Bible comports to life and reality, is what you were saying?
That's right. It deals with the human condition, man's nature, very well. It addresses the problem of sin, of man's relationship with man, and just understanding his place in the world and so forth. But primarily, there are many difficult passages. I understand the prompt, the Bible is BS. There are many difficult passages. They don't overwhelm me, the evidence that I have to believe it's true. I think there's enough God's mercy and love, and not randomly, but in proper measure, that there are certain repentances required and things along that nature. Just judicially, you have a very pertinent, story of what's going on with man and the earth and the universe and so forth.
That's really interesting because I find the morals in the Bible, I mean, certainly there are like some good morals, everyone's bound to get some right. But I find a lot of the morals quite reprehensible. Maybe we could take a specific example. So in Leviticus, God gives a lot of laws to the Israelites. He tells them, you can do these things, you can't do these things. They had just been freed from slavery. Instead of God telling them, thou shalt not own slaves, you yourselves were just slaves. So use your experience of being oppressed to have empathy for enslaved people everywhere and know that slavery is wrong because you've experienced it and what you experienced was wrong. But instead he says, no, you can have slaves. It's totally fine. You can totally own slaves. There's no problem with owning slaves, just not Israelites. The problem isn't that you own slaves. The problem isn't that the Egyptians owned slaves. The problem was that they owned Israelite slaves. So in Leviticus 25:44 through 46, when God says you can own slaves, and then in Exodus 21:20 through 21, where he says that you can beat your slaves with a rod, do you think that these things are morally perfect, that it's morally perfect to give laws saying that you could own slaves?
No, they are disturbing. There's quite a few disturbing things, especially in the Old Testament with the laws and so forth. Owning slaves, there are passages where they were treated. That term might be a little archaic in the fact that what we understand in modern day, what the term slave means, very subjugated, very oppressed. Back then, I think they were treated a little differently to the point that they could marry, and even making statements that if the slave wants to stay with you, he may do so. And that would be by his own volition, out of obviously not.
Sorry to interrupt, but like slaves from like the 1700s, like slaves in America, they could also marry. And no, I mean, a slave in this sense is just a person owned as property. But okay. It sounds like you're saying that it's not morally perfect. So you would say that God gave a law that was not morally perfect.
And bear with me here. In my eyes, I don't get it. I'm not totally comfortable with it, but I know I don't question his judgment, Ian. At this point, I've sort of acquired an implicit trust in God's judgment. So I wouldn't impugn him with doing something unjust. I don't get it, Ian. I don't understand the culture of the times enough to say this was just, but it appears to me in my naive position that yes, it's disturbing. Yeah. I mean, especially the beating part, like, to an inch of his life is I don't get it. I don't get it.
So we seem to have a bit of a contradiction here. So you acknowledge that these laws are not morally perfect. You acknowledge that God gave these laws, but you don't acknowledge that God gave laws that were not morally perfect. Surely, if the laws were not morally perfect and God gave them, then God gave laws that were not morally perfect, but you disagree with that. It kind of seems like we just have a direct contradiction.
Yeah, no, sorry. In my eyes, they seem imperfect, but I trust God enough that they were perfect. I'm saying they are perfect.
Okay, sure. So you have faith that the slavery laws were morally perfect.
I can't explain how. Yeah.
Okay, I take that to be a reductio. I think that's extremely unintuitive.
Okay.
It strikes me as really strange, DB, that you talk about the Bible as this great guide. I mean, granted, you probably don't know this. You might have found us for the first time. My name's Matt. I walked down the aisle at the age of 5, accepted Jesus into my heart, was a member of the First Baptist Church of Harvester and several others, and was studying to be a minister. And in around 30 or so, or a little bit after that, I found my way out. And there were a number of different reasons for that, but not the least of which is I found no evidence and no good argument that a God exists, that a God probably exists, or that God even possibly exists. And I find the book to be absolutely unimpressive as anything more than the writings of ancient people who didn't understand the basics about how the world worked, how science worked, or how morality worked. And it sounds to me like when you give your oh, the Bible is this, this, and this. And then when we point out right off the bat, here's the thing about slaves, you're like, yeah, I don't know that, but I trust God. How do you know there's even a God to trust, or that this book represents God?
Right, for the other reasons, like I was going to ask you, and not to evade your question, but is there anything, which I think you stated already, maybe you answered the question, is there anything within the entire 66 books that you did find somewhat compelling, at least momentarily or to some degree? So I would say I do, to the overwhelming degree, that there's enough in there about the Christ's atonement and that sort of idea of faith over work.
No, I find plenty of things. Sorry, I find plenty of things in the Bible that might be useful guides or lessons, but not because they're in the Bible and not because they represent anything divine. The Bible is a monumental comedy of errors where God creates two people and it goes wrong. And then he destroys language because people are cooperating. He then picks out his favorite group of people and decides to kill everybody else. And then he picks out his favorite group of people again, and it goes wrong. Every single thing just fails over and over and over and over and over again. And then he comes down and takes human forms and kills himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he's in charge of. And he has this notion that there should be eternal torment for finite crimes and punishes people for the sins of their fathers and 4 or 10 generations before that. He curses, he honors a curse of a gang of youths or young kids for calling someone bald. He honors an agreement to child sacrifice in order to win a war. He doesn't consider men and women equal or allowed to own property equally. He allows for slavery. He specifically commands, you shall buy your slaves from the heathen that surround you. You can beat them as long as they don't die within a couple of days. There is absolutely nothing in this book that I find rises above the level of man's thinking at the time. But even if there's some great insightful things about forgiveness, there's nothing in there that suggests it's divine. And we have no reason to think anything supernatural is even possible, let alone probable. But we have plenty of reasons to think that human beings, in their fear and ignorance, make up stories that they may find comforting and represent their best thoughts at the time. And when I look at the Bible, I see that, and that their best thoughts aren't good enough for anybody in the modern world, which is why you conveniently throw out the parts of the Bible you don't like.
Right. You brought up a lot of absurdities for sure, the way you express them as such. Now, I would have to ask, did you not think the authors who are writing these things only a few sentences apart from each other where the absurdity starts, this contradiction, that they were aware of this? I think it's saying something more profound, Matt, if I may, that is not always understood, that readily understood. You gave a spin on things in a certain manner. That, of course, it was not ridicule. You were showing the stupidity of it, the ludicrous nature of it. But I don't think that's not the way I would have interpreted those things. That
I know, because you've decided
blatantly,
that because something ridiculous is paired up with something that you don't find as ridiculous, that obviously they would have seen those errors, and you're just trusting that they had a good reason for it, or that God had a good reason for it. You trust God, but you've given no reason to think that a God is possible or probable. You've offered no evidence, and you've offered no argument. You've just said when you read the Bible, you get a good feeling and you're more convinced. That's none of that. What about the Bible points to something being divine? How do you know what God wants? Am I destined for a hell? Do I deserve it? How can I avoid it? How can you know any of those things?
I think it comports very well with life as we see it, as we know it. We see people's natures. We understand what the human dilemma is, that everybody is doing, the cliche or whatever, the adage that man is.
I promise you, I'm sorry. I know this is rude. I know this is rude. I'm tired. I promise you, your sophistry and woo is never going to impress anybody. I need evidence. You know what else comports well with the human condition? Secular humanism. You know what comports well with the human condition? Every story that humans have written about the human condition from the dawn of writing. What about this shows that there is a God or is likely a God?
A man's spiritual nature, just the fact that he's in search of these things.
What does spiritual nature mean, and how do you demonstrate that we have spiritual nature? Because I'm not convinced that anything supernatural exists. I see no way to test for it. I see no way to confirm it, and I don't know what you mean by spiritual nature.
I think if we came from a stardust and protoplasm, just rocks and gases, as entities that came solely from that, we wouldn't be as excuse me, the circular reason, the spiritual, speaking of transcendent things, non-secular things, speaking of about morality, about a being who is holy, righteous, and so forth, those thoughts there has to be a spirit.
What do you think Matt's question was?
Oh, I'm sorry, the proof that the spiritual nature.
The question was, what is the spiritual nature, if I'm not mistaken? He was asking for clarification on what that even means, and then the evidence that it's real.
Well, right. Well, so it means that we speak of spiritual things, things of morality, the spiritual.
Why would I grant that morality is spiritual?
If I speak of magical things, does that mean magical things are real?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we see the natural things. We see
no.
But
I didn't say natural.
You can't.
I said
love.
magical.
You can't measure love.
DB, yeah, you kind of can. But if I speak of magical things, does that mean magical things are real?
No, no. It means
okay. So your argument your argument that because we speak of spiritual things points to spiritual things being real is just as fallacious as saying we speak about magical things that points to magical things being real.
No, sorry. I mean, it evidences that within you, within your faculties, you have the ability to comprehend that, and that would not have come from rocks and stardust and the material.
Okay, so first of all, DB,
that ability.
It does not follow from your bold assertion that I have the capacity to understand something that cannot arrive from rocks and stardust, that the natural processes of life cannot produce that. You have not demonstrated that, and I would argue and bet all of my life savings that you have absolutely no way to demonstrate that. However, whether or not this can arise from natural processes has nothing to do with whether or not my ability to think about spiritual things confirms that spiritual things are real or that I was designed to think of spiritual things. And you still have not yet answered my question, which is, what does spiritual nature mean and how can you demonstrate that it's real?
Oh, sorry. Maybe I'm sorry. I'm trying. I'm thinking to myself that when we speak about love, we speak about God and religion, that every culture, society on every corner of the earth has.
What does spiritual nature mean, and how do you demonstrate that it's real?
I think the spiritual nature would be man compared to any other creature who doesn't have the ability to contemplate their existence, to think of the transcendent. They just live by their
What does spiritual nature mean, and how do you demonstrate that it's real?
It means that we're moral creatures. We're moral creatures. That's what spirituality is. When we talk about love and hate and altruism, compassion, all those things, all those words are meaningless and entirely secondary.
Spiritual just means moral? That can't be.
Sorry?
Because you can definitely make sense of morality in non-spiritual terms. For example, if you look at some of the very first philosophers, people like Aristotle, he's capable of making sense of morality about reasons for action in a totally non-spiritual worldview. He doesn't need to posit like ghosts and demons and stuff. He posits, he posits some wooey, wacky things like telos. He posits like innate, intrinsic goals of things, but that's not spiritual. To Aristotle, that was like perfectly physical. And to us, for example, we're perfectly capable of understanding that we have reasons to take specific actions. And if we're capable of understanding that we have reasons to take specific actions, then we're capable of understanding morality.
There's a pragmatism for sure with morality that comes along with it. One can easily explain it via that manner, but you do have that dichotomy where one person will sit to say survival of the fittest, that's his morality. The other one say no, live and let live. You do get that controversy going with morality where people are divided. It's not a consensus. So
yeah, that's why we need to examine what sort of reasons everyone has for action. Now, you're proposing that you have an objective moral framework. Well, if that's true, then every single person has a reason to do what God says. What reason? Let's say I don't care what God says. What reason do I have to listen to him?
Well, right. I mean, if you're predicating that he exists and you define his order, what reason would you have? Is because he's the greater than you and he's going to punish you accordingly. If I'm asking your question correctly.
So you're saying that if he doesn't punish me, I would have no reason. So, for example, Hitler had no reason to not do the Holocaust if in his last moments of life he repents and thus avoids punishment. When the reason for action becomes contingent on the punishment given, avoiding the punishment means that you never had a reason. That means that if Hitler repents and avoids the punishment, that he never did anything unethical in the first place.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I followed 100%, but no, your reasons are right. Should be derived from a good heart, a sincere heart. It's not to avoid
What's a good heart?
Sorry?
What's a good heart?
Is loving your neighbor as you love yourself.
How do you know that?
By the actions.
No. How do you know that that's what? How do you know that that's the definition of a good heart?
I've experienced, but Matt, I can't appeal to any higher things in myself right now.
Really, because you're basically trying to argue that there's a God because of this principle of a good heart being love thy neighbor as thyself, but you have nothing to point to. So we're still back at the question I asked about what reason do we have to think there's a God?
Because just for me to make that statement, there's no other creature on the planet lives by that. The animal, you have as a part of the animal kingdom, don't they kill indiscriminately? They live and let live. They don't have that moral standard.
I'm sorry, DB, but this is bullshit. Animals kill indiscriminately. Not every single one of them, but lots of animals kill indiscriminately. But let's assume for a second that humans are the only ones that kill indiscriminately. How does that demonstrate that there's a God?
Oh, sorry. Did you say that only humans kill indiscriminately, or do not kill indiscriminately? Sorry, repeat the question.
I think there's been.
I'm sorry.
I
thought you said that humans are the only ones that do X. What is it that you think humans are the only ones that do?
You're saying humans are the only ones that don't kill indiscriminately, but that's just false. Humans kill indiscriminately all the time.
No, right. That's right, Ian. There are cases of that. We have that potential, but also not to. Whereas, but we have remorse. We have contrition when we do certain things, just depending on the person, of course.
DB,
it's within that range. Yes.
DB.
Yes.
What is it about humans that makes it unique that points to there being a God?
These things that I'm talking about, we have that capacity to speak, to act on a moral level. We're not totally practical.
DB, why does a capacity to speak and act on a moral level point to a God?
Because I don't believe that we would have that faculty if we just came from
I don't
rocks
care,
and
DB, if you don't believe it. You not believing something does not mean that it points to a God, right?
But I don't know if this is even demonstrable, what I'm stating. Like, how can I'm
sorry, DB.
That?
Why is it that you believe something that's not demonstrable?
Because, okay, didn't word that correctly. I think God exists because evidenced by the spiritual nature of man.
Wow.
I think all that
now we're back to where it started. What is the spiritual nature of man? You said the spiritual nature of man was something along the lines of our capacity to consider moral things. And I said, what about our capacity to consider, stop talking. What about our capacity to consider moral things pointed to a God? And you said the fact that we can do that. How does us being able to consider morality point to a God? Oh, because it points to our spiritual nature. You have made a fully circular, completely nonsensical argument.
I don't think, but my point is, Matt, that a creature just came who was derived from rocks in the secular realm would not have
DB, where is your proof that natural processes that you want to characterize as rocks or whatever, where's your proof that natural processes cannot result in a life form over billions of years that can consider morality?
Well, I don't think it makes sense, and I would compare myself again to the humans, to the animal kingdom. You see that autonomy very
DB, I have
it.
zero interest in whether or not you find something makes sense. I want someone to demonstrate that they have a rational, evidence-based position. And if you're just willing to say, I don't think my position is rational and evidence-based, I'm not going to bother to demonstrate it, I don't know why you called.
May I ask what hypothetically what would I have to produce? Like, is there something that you can think of that I could produce tangibly to make your point, to satisfy your point?
So yeah, a rational evidence-based argument. But as I said earlier today, and about 500 times over the last 20 years, if there is a God, that God should know exactly what it would take to convince me. That God should be able to prove and provide that evidence to convince me, and that God has not done so, which means by definition that God does not exist or does not want me to know that it exists. I have no idea what would change my mind or what should change my mind, and I cannot know what should change my mind until somebody defines a God and I have a good enough understanding of reality to be able to discern the difference between that God existing and something I don't understand existing. And anybody who claims that they can tell the difference between that God actually existing and stuff they don't understand existing had better be able to explain it, or they're delusional and irrational.
Right. Can you, being as candid as possible, then why do the majority, just asking, why do the majority of people do believe, are we that, I wouldn't even call it deluded. I call it psychosis. If God does not exist.
It's not psychosis. It is irrational. It's not psychosis. It's irrational. I used to believe. I was a Christian for many, many years, was studying to be a minister. I do this because I spent so much time in it. I was, just like the overwhelming majority of people, misled, lied to. I misunderstood things. I was fearful. I was irrational, and I had fallacious arguments. When I decided to understand both epistemology and philosophy and care about rational evidence-based arguments and practice skepticism and critical thinking so that I did not fall for delusional beliefs, my belief in a God evaporated. When I realized that all of the various God claims are on equally gullible footing, that there's no more reason to believe in Jesus than there is to believe in, any of the other gods anybody's ever proposed, then it would be a mistake to pick one. If you have no way of telling, consider Pascal's wager. It's often offered of, but if I believe and I die, I've lost nothing. Bullshit. You've lost the opportunity to find the truth, and you've spent the one and only life you know you're going to have, working for a life you don't know you're going to have, not knowing what criteria you could possibly be judged on, or if judgment is even an issue, or if there's anything you can do about it. You will have spent a life worshiping one God that you don't have good reason for, while potentially pissing off some other God that you don't have reason to believe for. You have made a decision to opt for something, and you are willfully sitting there saying, I don't have good reason. And how would you keep another God from squashing you like a bug for not getting the answer right when you admit you're not being rational about it?
Yeah, for sure, Matt. That's quite the indictment that you made to man, which is fine, I would agree with you. If there is no God, that indictment is valid. But you are now making a statement that man is, with the highest intellect of any other creature on this planet, is the most absurd.
No, I did not make that claim. And you just demonstrated that you don't have the highest intellect of any creature on this planet, because that's not what I said. Whether or not humans have the highest intellect of any creature on this planet is completely irrelevant to everything that I've said, and in no way points to them being the most absurd. What is absurd, in my view, is to sit there and be willfully irrational, to be so overwhelmed with Dunning-Kruger confusion that you think you're right when you admit that you have no reason to think you're right. That is the height of absurdity.
Well, yes. Well, that's what I'm referring to. That all us theists.
Yes, but that's not all humans. That's you.
Oh no. But a large demography.
I don't care about the large percent. I care about the ones that are rational. I care about the ones that care about truth. I don't want to be absurd. I don't want to look like you. So I stopped. And I didn't have a choice, because beliefs aren't a choice. It became obvious that my beliefs were unwarranted, and I was just honest enough to recognize it.
Which you was the majority few, the landslide majority few. I'm saying, like, how do you explain that in natural terms where man just devolved as opposed
They're riddled
to
with
evil?
cognitive biases. The human mind is drawn towards explanations that involve agency. You know, we can't figure out what's making the tides do the tide things. Well, I guess it's Poseidon. Can't figure out lightning. I guess it's Zeus. We love these kinds of explanations.
When the bushes rustle, there's either something in there or it's the wind. And there's type 1 errors and type 2 errors. If you falsely think that there's no creature in there and you go exploring the bush, you die and you don't pass on your genes to your offspring. If you run away, whether there's something in there or not, you live, which means that there's certain errors in thinking that are more likely to be inherited, which is to falsely think that something is there, some agency is there, when it's not. We are the descendants of millennia and beyond of the people who were okay being wrong. And I'm done being wrong.
No, me too. I mean, believing in a fallacy is detrimental on any level whatsoever. I don't care how benign.
Give me a non-fallacious argument. Give me a non-fallacious argument for the existence of your God, where the premises are accepted, and the argument is valid in structure right now.
I would appeal to the ones you've heard already, the teleological argument, the cosmological argument, things of that nature. And the moral
Which cosmological argument? You like the Kalam cosmological argument, for example?
Listen, I don't know them that well. I have a cursory understanding of them. I know.
Okay,
have the names of them.
Let me rattle off the Kalam for you. The Kalam cosmological argument is everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. Premise 2, the universe began to exist. Conclusion, therefore the universe had a cause for its existence. Is that one you like?
I think it's a valid point. I don't think it's conclusive, but it's a valid point. It's a place to start.
Yeah, see, what's the difference between a valid argument and a sound argument?
I would consider them equal. I would consider them interchangeable.
Here, this is the difference, and I'm not trying to be a dick here, DB, but there's no two ways about it. I would recommend you at least go to Wikipedia and look up an article about the difference between validity and soundness, because in propositional logic, validity addresses the structure of the argument to determine whether or not the argument is valid in structure. And a valid argument is one where true premises necessarily lead to true conclusions. They have major and minor premises and connecting terms. It is specifically structural. Sound arguments are the ones where the premises are true, or I would say more accurately, accepted as true. Because rationality is, if you accept premise 1 is true, premise 2 is true, and the structure is valid, you have to accept the conclusion or you are irrational by definition. That is the key aspect of propositional logic. And if you don't understand the difference between validity and soundness, and you're willing to, it would have been better just to say, I don't know. But when you say you consider them equal, all you're saying is you don't understand the basics of epistemology, and yet you're reaching conclusions about what's rational.
Okay, well, I mean, intuitively, we probably understand the process, but we can't articulate it and so forth. I don't know, Matt. I don't know. You got me there. I mean, yes, you're going to talk over my head with things of that nature. But I think we understand when we're sort of convinced of something and not. Process.
But do we understand what? Let me ask you this, DV. What does it feel like to be wrong?
Yeah, it's shameful. You feel stupid. That
No, DB. It feels exactly like being right until you know you're wrong. When you know you're wrong, that's when you get to no longer being wrong. But people are wrong about things all the time, and they feel exactly like they're right. And that is the problem. Right. You cannot say that we intuit, because intuition is not a reliable path of truth. Faith is not a reliable path of truth. What is a reliable path of truth is rationality and evidence-based, valid and sound syllogisms.
Okay, I think, Matt, I know you're going to hate to hear this, but I think God has hidden certain things that He hasn't made it that quite evidenced. He doesn't come every morning and unfurl the flag.
Is there anything God hasn't hidden about Himself? Is there anything God hasn't hidden about Himself?
Hasn't hidden. He's revealed everything we need to know on a need-to-know basis.
Name one thing that God has revealed and how we know it's a revelation from God.
I think I'm going to quote Paul, which you've heard already, that I think by the natural things in the planet, we understand God's mighty power and so forth. That's what he has created.
Look at the trees.
We understand.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an absolute admission of failure, that you do not know what it means to identify that something is in fact a revelation from God. You couldn't even come up with an example. You just decided to quote somebody else making another unfounded assertion. Paul does not provide evidence for God. Paul provides excuses for people who do not understand that faith is gullibility. Well, I'll stop there.
Yeah, here's a little syllogism that I'm fond of for people who cite this verse from Paul. If the Bible is true, then I know that God exists just from the natural order, but I don't know that God exists, which means that the Bible must be false.
Does that make sense? Sorry, Ian. I'm not good with syllogism, but I mean, if you have one entry point, you read the Bible, you say the Bible is true, then you conclude that God exists. Isn't that enough? Then why go the other? Okay, so then
Paul's claiming that everybody knows that God exists just on the basis of nature, of the natural order, that everybody knows he exists, so all are without excuse. But I don't know that he exists. That's just false. The Bible
got another one for
you. It means you haven't perceived what you should have perceived by it.
Oh, of course. I just haven't perceived.
I got another one for you. You're confused by the Bible's position on slavery, right?
Yeah, it bothers me. I don't know what to make of it.
Are there other things about it that are confusing?
Yeah, but the Bible, yes, absolutely, Matt.
What does First Corinthians 14:33 say?
Oh, you gonna give me time to look it up, or do you have it?
You don't need to. I know it by heart and I can read it. It says God is not the author of confusion, which means God is not the author of the Bible, or it means that verse isn't true. But at some point, that is an unresolvable conflict. And now the question becomes, how do you tell which verses in the Bible are in fact true? Because that verse can't be true if there's confusion in the Bible, and it can't be the case that God is the author of that. So you need to go off, and we've got to leave here in a minute to read some super chats. You need to go off and figure out, and maybe you can pray and ask God what you should be doing, because right now, I'm sorry, but you've been taken for a walk, and you know it. What is the resolution? How do you figure out which parts of the Bible are true and which aren't?
I think the whole thing is true enough.
Really?
I mean,
so 1 Corinthians 14:33 is true, and God is not the author of confusion. So that means God isn't the author of the Bible, right?
No, he's not. He's not deliberately the way that Satan would be the author of confusion, like promoting it. God does not promote it, because man doesn't understand.
I'm sorry, DB, but you are so deep in your delusion that you cannot see the obvious. You are doing nothing but making excuses. I'm surprised you didn't say God didn't author it, God inspired it. You think the entirety of the Bible is true, but the Bible says that God is not the author of the confusion. But the Bible is confusion. The Bible's confused about science. The Bible's confused about morality. The Bible's confused about slavery. The Bible, and it not just is confused, it prompts and supports confusion. It supports your confusion. And what that causes you to do is to get into excusion. You use your excusion to avoid the conflict in your head about the confusion. Oh, I don't know. I just got to trust God. Maybe he'll tell me someday. Maybe he'll sort it out someday. I know it looks awful. If there was a person in your life that was advocating for the slaughter of other people and the slavery of other people, I'll bet every dollar I've ever earned that you would not be sitting here saying that you're just going to trust him. Meanwhile, you're willing to trust a God that you have no evidence, no understanding of, no way to think. How do you know God's not evil?
I think the Bible has proven that.
Congratulations.
Well, no, the universe
Or the
itself,
Bible tells me so. You have gone back to your circular argument. You
Well, no,
believe
hold
the
it,
Bible,
hold it.
you believe
Sorry,
God's good because you
sorry.
believe the Bible, and you believe the Bible because you believe God's good. You are absolutely in a circular mess. You have no evidence, you don't care about rationality, and you're just sitting here presenting circular arguments. We got to move on, DB, but think about it and call us back some other time when we have more time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Thank you.
Cheers, you too.
Great conversation, eh? I like how he's Canadian and he apologized like 3 times in a row at the end.
Yeah. Even at my nicest, I'm a bigger asshole than any Canadian you're ever going to find.
True.
I speak the truth. Hey, so we got super chats that we're going to alternate. We're going to read all of them over $10. If you like having Ian on here as much as I did.
I don't have the super chat form. Somebody needs to link this to me. Otherwise, I won't be able to read them.
Oh,
they'll pop up.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm dumb. Actually, yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Yep.
Oop, that was a test one, not an actual super. I'm so sorry. Wait.
Sure.
There we go.
So if you're out there watching and you want to thank Ian for coming out, you want me to have Ian on again, which I'm going to do whether you want to or not, as long as Ian wants to.
Of course.
Then throw out some super chats and keep supporting the line because there's a lot of stuff going on. And we had some really, really interesting callers here. And I will say, I'm loving the fact that when we switched to vertical video, I said this last week, I'll say it, and the week before, I'll say it again. I don't care if somebody is bad at arguing or has bad reasons, as long as they're arguing in good faith. We can have a conversation. We can learn something. They can learn something. You guys can learn something. Somebody later can learn something. The only thing, well, not the only thing, but the biggest thing that I hate are the people who just aren't honest, who are calling in to troll or stir up shit, or, the Phil bros that think, if I can show that Dillahunty is a dumbass, I've somehow proved God, which is literally one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I posted a video to my channel last week on Friday called I'm Not Relevant. And that's what it's about entirely, about how debate opponents and callers constantly try to take me down as if that doesn't, it's like the people who try to poke holes in evolution, as if poking holes in evolution will somehow prove creationism. Yeah. Even if you knocked evolution down entirely, you still have all your work to do on creationism.
Yeah. But, interestingly, that's the same strategy that conspiracy theorists use. If you like raise enough questions, then suddenly some completely crazy fucking theory about the Clintons or whatever becomes plausible.
Yeah. If you don't have an answer, then my answer is just as good as yours. So let me knock down your answer and I can pretend that we're on equal footing, which is why they also go after the faith thing. And they'll be like, well, you have faith too. Hey, when I sat down on this chair, I didn't exercise faith that it would hold my fat ass up. I have evidence of consistent, reliable results, and my confidence in this chair is proportional to that evidence. I'm not absolutely certain this chair will continue to hold me up. It could fail at any moment.
Yeah.
All right. $10 from Greg Markowski. Hey, Greg, how you doing? With the big war in the Middle East happening right now, are there going to be a ton of disappointed Christians, and what will their excuses be? I think once again, another war in the Middle East will end without the resolution they're looking for, and we will start the cycle again.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about not giving like solid dates, is that when it doesn't happen, you can be like, no, it was never going to happen. It's still on the roster. It's still going to happen.
That wasn't the war. That was one of the many wars or rumors of wars. We're waiting for the next one.
Yeah. Literally, Lou, thanks so much for the super chat. Ian, as always, appreciate you. Hey, Lou, thank you so much for everything that you do in support of my channel. I really appreciate it. Great to see you.
Thank you, Lou. $10 from Nico Teardrop. There's literally only 2 results for every single person. You either become critically disabled or you die first. Also, Tim needs to seriously talk to actual disabled folks in the U.S. What the fuck? That was really frustrating for me. And I love the fact that Ian addressed it, because it's something that I probably would have skipped right past, because I get focused on something. I don't always come up with the good examples. And from a moral standpoint, the thing that Tim was saying that irritated me was when he said, oh, I would imagine you, and he stopped himself. And then he said something else. And then he started to say once again, I would imagine on this circumstance, and that's why I said you should stop imagining what I do, because you're bad at it. Because Ian wants to ask the question and give the answer and then ignore the answer that you actually give him. And that happens not just with Ian. I mean, that happened with Mark and several others. And it's because they've got a thought and it's really stuck in their head. And there is some way, some phrasing to address it that will knock the rocks and the cobwebs out of the way and let that thought be something they can ruminate on. But you don't know what it is, because I could say 5 things and none of them impact him at all. And Ian could say the same 5 things and not impact him at all. And tomorrow somebody else could say one of those things, just one of them, the same way, or perhaps slightly different, but the same way. And then it hits, because the first time you hear something, you got your walls up. It's weird. No, reject. The second time you hear it, you're like, oh, that's not as strange. Now I'm getting this from more than one spot. And the third time, there's a pattern. And once the pattern gets going, if it wasn't obvious to begin with, it at least becomes approachable. And there are some people that can hear it 5,000 times and never change their mind. But I don't know who they are, and I don't know how to tell the difference. So we got to keep talking to all of them.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nico.
You know, that exact pattern comes up a lot. I've noticed it a lot on like trans issues specifically, that people will be, you know, transphobic, and they'll have it explained to them over and over and over again. They'll still be transphobic, but then they'll meet a trans person in real life and it'll be totally chill. And then they'll completely change their mind on it and it will all click. And I don't know, it's just about telling the person until it's like the right time and place. Mr. Colin Smith, thanks so much for the super sticker. Thank you so much for supporting the channel.
$10 from Space Barbarian. I love the I Heart Reality. Secular ethics for dummies. Think about the consequences of your action. Thanks for the good work, guys. Yeah. By the way, it's really old, and I don't know that if I stand by every aspect of what I said, but if you Google the superiority of secular morality, you will find a lecture that I gave probably 17 years ago or so. And it's about how you can construct a moral system with very basic just assumptions. Life is generally preferable to death. Happiness is generally preferable to sorrow. Health is generally preferable to sickness. And even though those aren't moral principles, the key thing there is that they're generally the case, that there are certain exceptions. This is why when Tim mentioned arguments for euthanasia, wow, my memory's doing pretty good today, which is weird. When he mentioned arguments for euthanasia, I was about to jump in and say, yeah, I fully support death with dignity, because I recognize that while we should prioritize life, and we should prioritize the quality of life, there may be times where the quality of life and the likelihood of recovery or improvement is so low that the most preferable thing might be to die. And I have had friends who have had terminal conditions where they were suffering with pain, who have ended their own life. And while I miss them dearly, I fully support their right to not only determine the way and time of their demise, but to make the decision on their own, that they are the autonomous governor of their ship, and that it is a difficult question as to when to intervene. And I think that we have an obligation to our fellow humans, that when they're suffering, if they seem to be wanting to take a permanent solution to what seems to be a temporary or resolvable thing, that we might have an obligation morally. We do have an obligation morally, in my view, to help them not take that. And when it seems that the rational course of action is to take that final step, I think we have a moral obligation to support that as well. I get that it's a difficult topic for a lot of people. That's why I don't spend a lot of time on it here. And that's why I didn't get into it with Tim. But yeah, it's life's a mess, but it's also the only wonderful mess we've got. Thank you, Space Barbarian.
Jamneck, thanks so much for the $10. The convo about grounding secular morality y'all had after Tim's call is what I was for tonight. Thank you both. Allegedly Ian and maybe Matt, hashtag Morton Salt Girl, hashtag FBMB, hashtag Team Arden, hashtag Discord Lives Matter, hashtag bingo. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I think that there's like a lot of, I don't know, I don't think that we should be ceding ethics to the Christians. I think that lots of there's lots of very like robust moral systems that you can arrive at from very plausible assumptions about ethics. The moral argument's on the rise, and for bad reasons. It's a terrible argument.
Also, religious moral systems tend to win converts over with conquest, coercion, or conversion through to an ideology. Whereas I argued, and this is in my argument or my lecture from however many years ago, the secular ethics, at least the systems I'm advocating for, instead rely on data, debate, and discussion. So I went with C's for them and D's for us. You can change whatever you want. The key is what changes the moral position. And it is a rational evaluation of evidence tied to, and this is important, and I don't mention it often enough, and I feel fucking bad for not doing it, tied with empathy. In much the same way that there may be a perfect game theory solution, but you may need the imperfect actor as the noise in the machine. Getting to like Star Trek is the example where Spock's like, logic is the beginning of wisdom. Empathy is what allows you to see the value of others to themselves and to you and to others.
Yeah. There's one thing that I want to add to this. I don't want to derail too hard.
No,
it's definitely like an aspect of morality that I would want to re-explore. This is kind of like my introduction to it. But there's this really interesting argument about it's called like discourse ethics, but there's like certain necessary presuppositions that we assume when we engage in conversation with each other. Like for example, we're trying to determine in an ethical discussion how we should live with each other. And in order to be rational about this, we must be empathetic in order to see where the other person is coming from. If we're not even trying to see where the other person's coming from, then we can't trust any of our conclusions, which means that in order to evaluate ethically and rationally, we need to be empathetic. There's no way around it. Otherwise, you're being irrational.
Yep. All right. Is this me or you? I don't know.
I think it's you.
Okay. See, my memory's starting to fail, and I don't know what this one's about because now we've got to the one I forgot. $10 from Paul. Suddenly, Jacob's balls dropped. Is Jacob the caller that just dropped?
No. I don't even know who Jacob is.
There we go. Maybe it's not just me.
Yeah. Paul, thanks so much for the $10 super chat. A dove shat on me yesterday. It was supernatural. Well, I'm convinced. Where do I adopt the metaphysical framework?
Wow, Paul is on fire. Another $10. I thank you so much. I need my Etch-a-Sketch so I can catch up with Mike LMAO. Yeah, that reminds me. I've tried to be less glib about some things until I've decided that if I'm about to get hot, it's probably better for me to do something to amuse myself. And one of my favorite things is I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you.
It's a good one. Your form, thanks so much for the $10 super chat. I like Mike's moral status idea. We should have a point system, 100 moral status points, and you can steal a chocolate bar. Or if you're a theist, have lustful thoughts. We could have punch cards. Yeah, it could be like when you go to the boba shop and they give you like the 10 punch cards, and then after that, you get one free theft.
I think maybe it could be like after 10 punch cards, you get to be the judge in the next case because that's where your status changes.
Yeah, sometimes you're the judge, sometimes you're the person getting prosecuted. It just depends who has the punch card.
$10 from Forever Unbound. I'm at the stage of my life right now where I'm either going to go young Earth or old Earth. Matt, it was nice seeing you in Arden Saturday. Yes, I wish I could have taken home a baby home, and hello to Ian. I'm actually wearing my work shirt from our exotic pet business. So this is the old logo, the Epic Loot Exotics logo. I think there's a big one on the back. I will try and turn around.
Whoa.
I'm going to assume that it was at least partially visible.
It was.
But yeah, we work with 21 species of snakes now because we've actually, no, it's going to be 22 because not only did we add berms, but 23. We just added Angolans and diamond pythons. I can't wait to post pictures of the new snakes.
Space Barbarian, thanks so much for the super chat. Dear theists, please bring proof of your gods that is as clear as proof of dog. Yep.
I don't even think I need to go that far. I mean, it'd be nice.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be convincing, if somebody came on and he's like, what's up? I have Jesus Christ, he's back. Fuck, I guess I'm a Christian now.
Yeah, it's like, I don't have to see the dog. But if I walk into your house and there's a dog bowl and a water bowl and a leash and a walking harness, and there's piles of poop in your backyard and a scooper and some dog food, if you tell me you've got a dog, if you tell me you've got a dog, I'm just going to believe you because so many people have a dog. But that would be pretty compelling evidence. And at a minimum, it'd be compelling evidence that you used to have a dog or you're planning to get a dog or wanted to get a dog or you were sitting for a dog. But yeah, why is it? It's just, well, the fact that we can think about morality points to our spiritual nature, which points to God, which means that the Bible's reliable, which points to our spiritual navel. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
$10 from the atheist mechanic who has a bamboo ball python as his icon there. Religion, the last refuge of a man with no answers and no argument. George Carlin. I concur.
Yeah, banger. Erica America, thanks so much for the super chat. Great pairing. I've been watching Ian for a few months. Super smart, and I love his snark. Whoa, thank you so much, Erica. Yeah, I've been developing. I've been hard at work forging this snark for like 25 years now.
I think that people should stop calling it snark and start calling it sass, because then they can say, "I love Ian sass," and then thanks. I like your sass too.
That'd be fun.
I stole that from some movie somewhere, I'm sure.
I think it's.
Oh, it was another one from Atheist Mechanic. Hey, Matt and Ian, great show tonight. You two are great together. Add in Justin and no theist. It would be too much. Like they'd just explode. Justin's just, everybody's too good at this now. I'm having more fun than I've had in ages. Add in Justin, the theist stands no chance. Pretty excited to see you at NanoCon as well, Matt. Have a great night, friends. Thank you so much. I am putting together, I hope it's not the last big magic show that I do, but it's definitely going to be a collection of my favorite tricks that I haven't done. There'll be a couple that I've done before because there's two that get put into every show for atheists at least. But there'll be a lot of stuff there that I've wanted to do for years and haven't been able to. You can ask Arden. As soon as they said, hey, you want to do this? I said yes, and I just went crazy starting to make a list and picking up stuff and, I literally have rope and other things like within reach of me right now that I've been working on at my desk and practicing. So there we go.
Inane Glory, thanks so much for the super chat. We lost one of our cats yesterday. Oh no! After a very long, drawn-out illness, family is suffering with the rawness of the loss. Hug your fur babies. I'm so sorry to hear that, Inane Glory. From the way you're talking about your cat, I'm sure that you gave your cat an extremely good life. I'm sure they were very comfortable with passing. I'm sorry to hear that.
I will say a report on our puppy, who's our dog is 3 years old, and she is incredibly dog reactive. But we are taking her to training. She's gone to a number of private training sessions. And I'm sure lots of people say this, and it's not like I have a ton to compare it to, but genuinely one of the smartest and most eager to please dogs I've ever seen, but also one of the easiest to lose focus and not come when called and not pay attention. And she loses her shit when she sees another dog. We have a cat as well. And the cat's basically been living up on top of snake racks, kind of in terror where the dog can't get to her. And we keep the dog on a leash in the house. And over the past week, we've walked the dog past the cat. We've had her sit down directly in front of the cat with the cat hissing at her from above, and we're able to maintain focus. We've had her stay laying on the couch with us while the cat walks around. But then also she's tried to jump. But we're making really good progress, and we love them both dearly. I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. Oh, we're over time. We got supers to get to. If God wasn't the author of confusion, then we wouldn't have had so many denominations and other religions. Yeah, at least not for that religion. That God's not in. Thanks much, Deadhead.
Yep. Paul, thanks so much for the super chat. Appreciate you. Ian, yes. Paul, no.
$10 from Hip Given. Biologist here, stumbled upon this and happy to see you respectfully fighting delusion with evidence-based logic. Great way to challenge people to open their minds. Keep it up, guys. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. And don't forget to watch Skeptalk on Monday.
Akash Bagak, I butchered that. I'm sorry. Thanks so much for the $10 super sticker. Appreciate you.
I wouldn't have got it right either. $5 from Song Across America. I think that we have stirred the hornet's nest with Iran, and that we have awakened a new wave of terrorism. There's a lot of support there. I think that should be.
From?
Yeah, but there's a lot of support. Their form of Islam. So I think maybe it's a their thing. But awesome. Thanks, Songs.
Is the toddler who believes in Garthen, thanks so much for the super chat. Is there a toddler who believes in God because mommy and daddy told her irrational? When does their belief become irrational?
Nice. I don't think that the toddler is necessarily irrational. In much the same way that once upon a time, it was absolutely rational to believe that the sun went around the earth. All of the available evidence and everything that we could have processed at that time, given what we knew, that was the rational conclusion. And it was wrong. Rational doesn't mean true. And yeah, toddlers may in fact be exercising their best rational mind to trust in the humans that are looking out for them. I don't know how easy it is to draw the line on when that becomes irrational. And it's probably going to be different for different people at different ages. Maybe some people never grow out of it. But at the point where we would reasonably expect the average person of that capacity and age to know things, that's where the line is for me.
Definitely.
Ian, tell everybody where to find you. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, you can find me at AllegedlyIan on all platforms, allegedly.ian on, or maybe it's allegedly_ian on TikTok. If you put in AllegedlyIan on those platforms, I'm going to show up. I also have a link tree. It's linktree / what is it? It's literally in the side chat. Okay, I lost it.
It's in the description too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the description.
Go to linemerch.com, like, subscribe, join, and go to patreon.com/calltheline to support us. See you tomorrow.